No, you just gave me reverb. But
Yeah,
I think we're good now.
sorry.
And
Oh,
let's
you know, it
see.
was work, and I
All
left it on.
right. Okay, awesome. Everybody, welcome to Before the Dust Settles. This is a after show that I started with Hax Dogma for Westworld, and I am joined with my co-host from that show, Hax Dogma. Welcome back to YouTube, my friend. I know you're busy just being lazy writing a book, so I'm happy that you are able to join us again. I would like to, give you the honor of introducing yourself first, because I'm honored to have you back on and reliving some of that Westworld life.
Yeah, of course, of course. Hey, everybody, Hax Dogma here, and yeah, I kind of took a break from YouTube for a bit to work on a novel called Cyclic, which is so close to being finished. Robert on this very panel will be one of the advanced readers of it. So if he doesn't like it, then I guess we won't move forward with it. But yeah, it's so close to being done, and the editor just sent it back with phenomenal notes. So as for here on YouTube, just Hax Dogma. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to discuss Westworld today, and we're going to figure out, how the battle in the cradle went last episode. So now,
Yes,
next
yes.
up, we will go to Johnny Be Crazy, who ironically started with us for the last episode of our Westworld stream. Welcome, Johnny.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, you actually got me started into this and pushed me to do some Westworld content. I appreciate that. It is fantastic to be on the panel, and we have a good few things to talk about. The Game of Thrones is back. That's something I'm super excited about. So I can't wait to talk about it. Find me on Johnny Be Crazy is my name, so check it out.
Absolutely. And our great, I say third wheel, but you're the best damn third wheel in the business, because you are the perfect regulator when it comes to just interceding between me and anybody else to keep me on track and keep things going. Axel Foley, what's going on?
Justin, it is my unique pleasure to be here today with all of you fellas. You can find out more about me at podcastwinterfell.com. We do 3 shows a week, initial reaction every Sunday night. I'm going to do one with Gina tonight. Tomorrow we're going to have a roundtable. Wednesday I go on with Heath. And actually I'm going to do feedback. You did feedback with me on Friday for Podcast Winterfell. I'm really excited to be here. The chat looks lively. I know it's been a rough week out in the fandom, but we're going to have fun today and talk about a show we love, Game of the Thrones.
Yes, absolutely. You can also do a background check on him to find out more about him. Quite disturbing, to be honest. And last but not least, and Robert has made time for us. You've had a very busy week, and you have your own stream you have to get set up for. So as much time as you can spend, we appreciate it. And just go ahead and quickly introduce everybody that may not know you. And congratulations on that 100K, brother. You deserve it.
Well, thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Guys, if you don't know, I collabed with most of these guys all through Westworld, and it is great to be. And Johnny, it's fantastic to be on with you as well. If you don't know me, my channel is In Deep Geek. I look at Game of Thrones, Westworld, and I'm going to branch out into things like Tolkien as well after season 8. But yeah, really looking forward to chatting today.
Awesome. So let's get into it. So a few things that we're going to want to touch on is if we think there's going to be any further insight into the Night King's motivations. I feel that that's been a big sticking point for the people that have been not so happy this week. Ironically, I will state that I am not an apologist. I am definitely not a fanboy. I have to try so hard to make sure not to get too negative on certain aspects of when it comes to continuity and plot holes. And I think I've been doing a pretty good job, but I didn't have to try to not find, or I didn't have to try to find like positive things about this episode. Of course it had flaws, but people are just freaking out. And I don't really think it's that deserved. I think that it's a pretty solid episode for what they dealt with, but definitely one of the complaints is the Night King's motivations. So we'll go around and get everybody's perspective on that. Also, will Bran aid in the upcoming conflict with Cersei? Is his job done? I'll go ahead and argue no, because it seems like the most important information that he brought back, or what he sees as important, is that, Jon's parentage. So that really didn't have too much to do with the Night King, as we see. So, and then, well, we have any major deaths. David Nutter, directed the Red Wedding. He is the director tonight. It is an hour and 20 minutes, I believe, tonight. So, just predictions like that. So we'll start with you, Robert, because you are short on time. And we'll start with the first question. Do you think that we're going to get any further insight into the Night King's motivation or anything like that, specifically tonight? And if you want to go overarching for the last 3 episodes, that's fine as well.
Short answer is no. I honestly think that they've not drawn a line under the whole White Walker Night King thing, but the Army of the Dead's gone. The major focus of this episode is going to be the aftermath of that battle, and then the move down to refocus down on King's Landing. It's not going to be thinking about why on earth was it that the Night King raised his army and all the rest of it. The army is gone. The only thing that is left hanging possibly has the threat of the White Walkers as a whole gone. That's the only thing that's left up in the air. We're not going to get any more. I think the showrunner has been quite clear, in my view anyway. They have told us why they were coming down south, because they are death, because that's what they do. We might find that an inadequate answer, but I think that is the answer they've given us, and so I don't think we're going to be told any more.
Absolutely, and I'll just go ahead and state that I am in complete agreement with this, and I think that this is the Game of Thrones. Like Johnny said, we're back to the Game of Thrones, and yes, that's always been in the background. It's a high fantasy backdrop. We're introduced to them at first. It's always a lingering threat. It helps keep this jostling for power more grounded. But, for everybody that, and I'm not trying to be hateful towards everybody is, definitely justified to have criticism, but realistically, yeah, we were curious to why they're coming, but we've just known that they're the threat that has been in the background that people have been ignoring for the most part, and what happens when they can't ignore it anymore. So really giving us a whole bunch of reasons. Number one, if you workshop it, it's just going to turn into some weird scenes with a bunch of exposition and pretty much stating some bullet points of why they were doing this or that and some contrived reason. But yeah, I don't believe so either. Axel, do you yearn for more information about the White Walkers, or believe we will get any?
I love the mythology stuff, Justin, just like everyone else. We've talked about this. I started podcasting 10 years ago. My show was called Lost Mythos Theory Cast. So obviously I love theories and mythologies, but they've told us the Night King was a man. He was turned into a beast by the children. He killed them. He mocked them by taking their symbols and inverting them. He mocked John. He mocked Dany when she tried to burn him. He was a troll, and he was taken down, and now we have to move on. So I think that part is over. But I do think that Bran and this overall world, that is a magical world, and that is one where the magic is imbued in the blood of the people, right? We're still going to get some more of that. I don't think the magic is totally done, but I don't think we're going to have we look at a bucket of water and then the Night King forms again. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a really good theory, though. I believe that's going to happen.
I'll accept nothing but that. Yeah.
Hax. Yeah, go ahead. I'd like you to elaborate on the bucket of water theory that's been popular.
Oh, me? Oh, no. I'm sorry. Yeah, overall, as cool as that would be, that probably won't happen. But I think I just don't know. Something feels off, like this gut feeling that we're missing something, or something needs to be explained more. And maybe it just goes to Bran's character, period. Like, Bran and the Night King have always been connected, so there wasn't really a payoff of what Bran has been doing or what his purpose is. I guess it's there. It has been explained, but I just can't shake this feeling that there's more to be explained. And it also, something I want to think about is there's these prequels being described, and the showrunners have come out and said that this isn't the last time we'll see White Walkers and the Night King. So if this is really the end of that legacy, then everything that they make after this, describing different events throughout maybe the Long Night or something like that, it'll be interesting because watching that and watching all of the prequels will now, have this image of this is how the Night King dies. This was the story of the Night King, regardless of what's happening in that. It all leads up to him dying at that point. So I feel like they could go. There could be something more, and it could be something like, whereas there, must be a three-eyed raven, there must be a Night King, and I think that there's room. I think that the show is in a unique position that we may not get that strictly because of time. Yeah, and I think that's where I'm at. I'm hopeful, and I feel like there should be more, something should be elaborated on more, but I don't think that we'll get it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go to Johnny in a minute. I just want to really, just say that what you said about Bran is what I've been saying. It is more so, I believe, an issue with we're not really getting any resolution as far as his arc goes. In that is what is probably more frustrating, whether it's conscious or whether we're conscious of this or not. Subconsciously, I believe that's why we feel a little bit empty with it, because why did Bran have to be the one to go? Why did he have to go replace Brennan Rivers? There are some holes with that. So, technically the Night King, we have empathy for him. He was changed against his will. He has to go back, and the magic has become stronger at this point for some reason. This is his best chance, so he's going to go and try to get his, vengeance when he can. And it does leave it open for the spin-offs and stuff like that. We know that he can be killed, but we can also see different times when the White Walkers have come and get a little bit more story from them in something that's more solely focused on them, a more high fantasy based series. I guess maybe would be a smart idea for them. Johnny, your thoughts?
So I'll kind of entertain this just to have fun. The Night King could already have a replacement. Or 4, maybe his replacement already. Maybe when the Night King dies, another replacement takes, someone takes his place as kind of a classic fantasy or horror trope that I can't think of the name of right now. But in general, I think he's gone. I think the main point of this is that humanity is the real evil here. That yes, there is an existential threat, almost a natural disaster. They come together, but can they stay together as humans afterwards? I think is more what we're supposed to focus on. And I wish I could put it a little more poetically than that, but yeah.
Oh, well said. And I think, a lot of truth to that, and just because the Night King has died, magic has not died. And I think that, these reoccurring events and history repeating itself is going to stand true for this story. I think that, this Night King is gone, but the magic that created or was part of the creation of Night King is not gone, and definitely it is a product of trying to establish peace through chaos. So that'll probably unfortunately happen again. So I like that. We'll move on to the next one and go to Robert first. Do you think that Bran will aid in a significant way with this conflict with Cersei, whether it's give advice on tactics, or actually do some actual Bran 10,000 stuff, use his powers for something other than like Ancestry.com, as I call it?
So he's his main role has been understanding what's going on and all the rest of it. I think that the short answer is that he probably, or when we talk about Bran is now the three-eyed raven. So the person we knew as Bran is just a part of the whole now. The question is, what is their motivation? And their motivation is something along the lines of the continuation of the Earth. Now, they're not gonna, or Bran is not gonna take the side of the North because he cares about the North, because Bran loves his siblings or anything like that. That's not what's gonna happen. But it's clear that he has already intervened, in as much as he told Sam to tell Jon about his parentage, and he picked the exact right moment to do it when Sam was really annoyed with Daenerys. And so when he was telling Jon about this, it was not in a kind of a calm way. It was very much you would be a much better monarch than Dany. So that was deliberate by Bran, and that's the only hint we've got so far that actually perhaps Bran might be wanting to manipulate events, the Three-Eyed Raven might be wanting to manipulate events so that Dany does not get onto the throne. Now, in my worldview of this is about balance. Certainly in the books, and I hope they take this across to the show as well, this is about balance. If you've got ice and fire, both these two huge forces, both of which could destroy the world, if ice has been pushed back, we also need to push back fire in order for there to be some sort of balance. So perhaps that's what Bran's doing. We haven't been given all the clues yet, but that's the best idea that we've got right now, is that Bran is wanting to restore the balance in some way.
Absolutely.
Makes me think about the vision with the Mad King Aerys II.
Yeah, and if any, Three-Eyed Raven has interfered, because I think that we all just are under the assumption that he went beyond the wall solely for the Night King, to deal with that problem. But that's very interesting, Robert, because the information he brought back seems to be far more useful for that situation, because, and I just want to carry this on so you guys can further elaborate on it. Do we think that, Jon, knowing his parentage, aided in this in any way with the Night King? I will just argue no. So it does seem like his trip beyond the wall was, for more than just the reason of the Night King. And we'll go to Hax next on that.
Certainly. First, Ancestry.com was a great joke. Just wanted to comment on that. Second, so this it's like essentially the Three-Eyed Raven are Jedi, and I definitely understand that, and I kind of agree with that sentiment, but I feel like it has to be that. Otherwise, if it's not that, then Bran is just too strong, and it guarantees that Dany and/or Jon win. Because otherwise, why doesn't he just warg into Cersei and walk her off a cliff, or any number of things that would just end this instantly? So I think that's right. I mean, I think that Bran will always remain this third party that just assures that things happen because they're supposed to happen, without getting too much of an emotion behind it, but. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what more to add to that. I think I think that we'll see Bran kind of have some big revelation to finish his character arc. Make him come back in a way, or make his goal or in his entire story more than just the conduit to get Jon information about who his parents were. And I think that it will probably benefit the people that we love. But I can't rule out that at the same time he won't just act as that third party and allow our favorite people to die, so that balance remains.
Yeah, I do want to touch on something you said, because I found it to be very interesting. You said along the lines of he knows what needs to happen, and in that I think that speaks true, especially with the Night King. And we have this way of thinking of Bran knowing what has to happen, but it's interesting when we think about who to put on the throne. Do we believe that Bran is somebody that would know the best ruler? Like, why would he be the judge of that and be able to come to that conclusion? Like, because I totally agree with you. We are, I think, all of the mind of he just is trying to make things happen the right way. But it's like his skill set, when you really think about it, I guess doesn't really apply to what's like ethically and morally going to be advantageous for the realm, like having a ethical leader and somebody that's going to be doing the best thing for the people. I don't know if he is like going to be privy to that information, but we do look at him as this all-knowing being, but really he can just see the past, so he sees a lot of people's mistakes, and perspective is important. We can learn from history so it doesn't repeat itself and so forth. But yeah, I guess I love what you said there, because we have to consider, does he know what's best for the throne? He knew how to goat the Night King to to hit his demise, but does he know who is going to be the best leader? Johnny?
Maybe. I think he's seen past the decisions people he's ran into or had contact with or heard of. He has to seemingly have this direct link or be told where to go to look in time. And him predicting the future has got to be a little bit murky. I almost feel like they're setting up Bran to be killed by humans and not the Night King, and humans take out their own memory. I think that would be very, very bittersweet.
I really like that. Just a comment. Yeah.
And then without that, what's his end goal, right? He just goes and weaves back into the Weirwood roots. If he's to be this memory of the world, he has to go back into the system, I think. I think he's going to try to manipulate things, but we've seen Bloodraven even screw up, so I think Bran can definitely screw up as well. And you can't see everything that happens, so one false move, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Brendan Rivers spent his life manipulating, what was happening within the system. And then as the, three-eyed raven, which, as Robert correctly cited, is not, you don't really maintain much of yourself. You become like this omniscient being because you are desensitized by seeing everything else. It just went the magical route. But during his life, he was the manipulator and played the Game of Thrones, I think probably throughout the lore more than anybody. So that's interesting. Axel, thoughts on Bran's influence on the throne?
I think I don't know. I have to say that I haven't really thought about his influence on the throne because I don't think the throne is important. I just don't. I know this is debated, whether it's HBO's marketing for the throne or all that and the Iron Throne, but I think it's just obvious that at the end, nobody's going to sit on the Iron Throne. They're going to try to figure out a more kind of democratic or people-driven way. I think this whole story is about breaking down norms and traditions and prophecies and false histories. So it's got to be something new. So I see Bran more as providing a closure to this loop. And that's I think the journey that he is on right now post the defeat of the Night King. And whether or not I do think the Night King is done, but that doesn't mean that like balance has been regained to the Force. You know what I mean? In these stories, there's always kind of a last act of magic where it has to kind of do one last thing. And I think in this world, it's not particularly to go away, but it's to kind of balance things out and maybe people become more comfortable with it. You see that magic has always been used for war in this world. The dragons, the Night King, the people chopping down the werewolves. It's always been a point of contention and frustration, not of harmony. So I hope that's what Bran will do. And I definitely think it's going to end up with him dying. Whether or not it has anything to do, he has anything to do with who ends up ruling or if there's an Iron Throne or anything like that, I just don't think that's very important to him. I think that's very secondary to the story, who's controlling it. Just the Iron Throne, not how people govern, because obviously politics is important to this story.
Yeah, I guess, just replace who, if he's invested in the throne with, is he invested in who is, in power and who does have power over the people? Because obviously, I think that he came back with the information that Jon is the true monarch, according to secession, and that, the Night King would be following him because he got the mark and the children had changed him. So like 3 different pieces of information. Seemingly the most important was Jon's claim to the throne. So it seems like that is very important. But yeah, it doesn't have to be the Iron Throne. And I was in line with you. I thought there'd be no way there'd be a throne at the end of this. Now I would bet, and I always say this, I love to gamble, and I will bet everything I got on there will be a throne.
Really?
Yeah.
All right,
and again, this isn't our ideas about like what we think. Obviously, I don't think anybody's like rooting for. We're not monarchists here. Yes. If you are, that's fine. Robert might be.
I have $50. I have $50 that says the dragons somehow burned the throne. Just all I can picture in the most cinematic way that you could possibly destroy the throne is just dragon fire. Done.
Gentlemen,
dragons create.
Make it interesting.
Yeah.
Say
They
it again,
forged
sorry.
the throne.
Me and you, $50 on that.
Yeah, $50.
Everybody heard it, gentlemen's bet. I like it. Yeah.
So you're okay with that.
All
I
right.
think Hax is safe on this one.
Yeah. I'm saying, well, okay, to define it, if it does happen, that's how it would happen. Yeah.
I take Hax. I'm on Hax's side.
But in the bet, let's be clear, it has to go away. The throne has to be melted down.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Make sure everybody's watching this. Right. And hopefully, if I lose, hopefully there's not as many people watching.
Delete the VOD quick. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I love that though. So we'll do major deaths really quick at the end. But I want to jump just to people's individual goals and desires. Like what motivates them and where they stand. Because right now we are essentially seeing the first act of a simply structured story. This is a 3-hour, 2.5-hour blockbuster film, essentially, even though I think it's technically closer to 4 hours, but meaning we are going to see a first episode tonight where there's going to be a lot of rebuilding and debate over, what their plans are going to be and how they're going to first approach the, problem with Cersei, the conflict that they are going to, go into probably the next episode. So we are going to see a lot of people, debating over what the best way to go about this is. And what I find interesting, and I'm going to put out there, is that Dany is now without a army. She has lost her army, essentially doing the right thing, meaning saving the people. But I am of the mind that she has kind of, if not for sure, lost the ability to take that throne, at least take it in an ethical way. As season 7, we know it was a lot of just tiptoeing around how they can't take King's Landing because of this or that, and they had to be like, no, Cersei's a threat, or no, we need Cersei, she's a good person. It was very hard to kind of sit through. But now Cersei, her plan worked. Her terrible qualities paid off for her. Probably short term as always, but the Lannister troops are around 10,000. Euron's got 30,000. Again, I can't understand why even one person would follow Euron. But 900 ships, Golden Company 20,000. These are numbers stated from the showrunners. Logistics when it comes to military in the show don't usually pan out, but whatever. They have made it clear that the North, even if they are going to unify their forces, are still standing at just 10k against 60k, but they do have 2 dragons. So what I'm driving at is Dany really doesn't have a choice other than using the dragons to burn cities, as Jon was so adamantly against, as Tyrion was so adamantly against. Seemingly everybody was against this. And now, really, she can't go about this conflict in any other way. So I think it's very interesting to look at how people feel they should get power, obtain it, and how they feel they should keep it. And everybody, like Varys had said in season 7, he's not going to reward, bad behavior with blind faith and so forth. So I just want to go over some of our main players and, how they feel about obtaining power and maintaining it, and if we think there's going to be any divides. We'll start with Varys. We see him a lot in these upcoming scenes standing next to Dany instead of Tyrion. I'll go to you first, Robert, on this. Do you think that Varys is going to be okay with Dany assaulting King's Landing with dragons? Do you think that's something that's going to go down? Where is he at right now? Because he has been sitting around for 2 seasons essentially doing nothing. They've kept him here to do something that has to be important, else he wouldn't be on the show anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. Varys hasn't done anything of note for a couple of seasons. He brought Dawn into play and got all of those sort of political arrangements going a couple of seasons ago. Since then, he's basically just been wandering around after Dany. I think the way they've set up his character is that he cares about the small folk, and he is going to shift from monarch to monarch according to where he thinks is the best ruler. Now, all of this hinges on what happens with knowledge of Jon's parentage. This is the key thing If it just sticks with Jon and Jon keeps it all quiet and Sam doesn't say anything, then actually I don't think there's huge amounts here. But now it's out there, it's going to start spreading. And that is the thing that is going to potentially lead to some kind of rift, I think, because that is the moment when people like Varys, Tyrion as well, they're going to say, okay, so Jon is actually the rightful king, if you take the Targaryen succession as the right. Jon is actually the rightful king. And why is it we're supporting Dany when her first reaction, probably too often for most of us to be comfortable, is to go and just burn loads of people in King's Landing? So that's the point at which I think Varys could switch sides. They've set him up on the show. In the books, as is always the case, he's a lot more nuanced, quite a lot darker character. But on the show, he seems to be about caring about the impact of all of these wars on the small folk. And if he sees another better possibility to be ruling the Seven Kingdoms, then I think he might switch his support.
Yeah, absolutely. He has had the small folk in mind. But as Melisandre mentioned in season 7, they are no longer, the small folk. So I guess the only question is how detached is he at this point? But that's very interesting. Hax, how do you feel about Varys?
So I think Varys is he's done for. I mean, he's played his role. He's discount Littlefinger in some ways, and then in other ways not. I mean, he is a great character, but I don't see him doing anything else except for dying. In fact, I thought that he would die last episode along with like everybody, but I don't know. He is that leech character that just makes sure that he stays alive and aligns with who's in power and aligns with what's going to keep him alive so that he can play his game. But I think we've seen it. I think that's been done, and yeah, that's done. I think that a good death for him would be by Cersei. Perhaps even, and this is super far out, but like if Dany loses and he survives, then Cersei sees, him flip-flopping and executes him, or I don't know. I want some kind of way in a similar fashion that Littlefinger lost his life, that, this behind the scenes political game somehow bites him in the butt. I think that I love him as a character. I just don't know what else he could possibly do now. Like, I feel like the North is going to align. I feel like the drama that we've seen, even if Bran publicly is like, Aegon Targaryen, and everyone freaks out, then Dany doesn't have much of a choice. I feel like they're going to be on a united front. They're going to go after Cersei. And I don't know what Varys does in that, other than try to maybe play a political game at first or something, and then that backfires. And yeah, I see him dying. That's I see Varys' future as him being executed as a kind of political game that he plays.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's just that everybody now has had their chance to, showcase what they've been, begging for the whole series. There's always been something in their way that they've always had to serve a king for this reason or that reason, or Cersei with Tywin not recognizing her potential. It's like they're not restrained anymore. Nobody's holding them back, so it's put up or shut up. So is this person that he felt was the best ruler going to turn out to be that? Is that going to pan out for him? I guess one further question for you, Hax. If Dany turns out to be somebody that he does not feel is taking this power and handling it in the way he thought, do you think that if he has a chance to switch allegiances, who would he switch to?
I think that's a good point. And I think that along the terms of poetic deaths, instead of Cersei killing him, Dany killing him would maybe more poetic, in the sense that perhaps he does align more with Jon, and that tension comes about. I don't know.
None of us know, just to be clear. Don't, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel that if Jon came out and they made the claim that he was the rightful king, I just don't know what kind of weight that carries right now. I mean, I feel like it would only matter to Daenerys and maybe Cersei, because it's a way that she can manipulate Dany and Jon, but Jon doesn't care. Like, I mean, maybe he does because he's sleeping with his aunt, but outside of that, I don't think that Jon cares. I think that, he is who he is, and he's even described to Theon, you are a Stark, but you're also a Greyjoy. He's not going to somehow be that divided because he's a Targaryen, and I see a more united front up north, and maybe Varys switches sides, but I don't think that we have enough time to get into the political of it unless it is that polar, north versus south at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just coming down to, is it going to pan out for everybody? Because now, just like I said, with Varys, now Tyrion's in the same situation. Jon's no longer held back by the lack of a proper, noble name and so forth. We'll go to you, Johnny, on this.
Well, y'all have covered it pretty well about Varys' motivations. Of course, he says he's for the realm. I would say he's going to choose Jon based on Dany's burning of people. That really has bothered him. That's the only time I've seen Varys that nervous. The only time you've ever seen him drink throughout the show. I think if he sees a better option, he will take Jon, but I don't think he's going to say anything from the beginning. I feel like from here they're going to split up their forces. They're going to the Iron Islands and maybe the Vale. They don't have many choices to get troops. Now, this is just my opinion, but when they separate, I think Varys may offer to go with Jon. And then he has his opportunity to sow the seeds. I feel like they're going to meet up on Dragonstone. That seems like one of the best militaristic locations they could be with the dragons. Although, I don't know. You could argue with me on that. But Varys is going to play the long game here. I see him getting killed unexpectedly by someone that we don't see coming. Not for revenge, not for lust. It might just be a straight up murder. So we'll see.
George does imply that he cuts the tons out of the the little bird, so maybe it's just one of them. But yeah, I do want to point out one thing when we talk about people going over to Jon and so forth. These pictures I have on screen right now, it's from the preview, and they're mourning separately. We see the Targaryen alliance. We see Tyrion, Dany, Missandei, Varys, Grey Worm standing in front of their people, the Unsullied, the dead mourning them. And then when you go to the north, you have, I just need to get to it. We have, Bran, who is staring dead off into space. Like we said, he's probably doesn't consider himself a Stark anymore anyways. Arya, Sansa, Davos, in the mountain, ironically. So, and I think Jon is to the side here. So it's interesting that they, there is a divide. My argument is, before we go to Axel, is I don't think that the North is going to be as quick as people think to back Dany, because they didn't watch like season 1 and 2 and see all the struggles that she's been through. This is a story that's a narrative that's driven very much so and so effective because of the perspective, the POVs, how we see events, the same events through different eyes. You start feeling for Jaime Lannister when you start, seeing things through Jaime's eyes, walking in their shoes. So the North isn't going to be so quick to just run down to the capital, because they just want to keep their independence. Only way I can see that going through is if Dany would give them their independence if they help her. But it's kind of a moot point, like we've talked about anyways. The numbers really aren't there. But Axel, do you have anything to add? And then I want to move on to a counterpoint to what I just said, ironically, the Targaryen fleet, because who is on that? She doesn't have a substantial army at this point, so that's quite a large amount of ships to be carrying the troops that she does have right now. So is there a chance that we have a Riverlands come into play? And that could come from Sansa. She has Tully connections and so forth. Axel, thoughts on people's motivations to support Dany or Jon or even Cersei or possibly Sansa?
Well, we started talking about Varys, and I love this character. I love this actor. Isn't it crazy when you see normal pictures of him, how he looks in real life? He looks so
his
different.
hair.
Yeah, but it just his whole face, it just shows you. But yeah, I do. I have luscious hair. Sorry, Justin. But I think he's an interesting character. Unlike Hax, I don't see him. I never really saw him, though the show sets it up as a parallel to Littlefinger, because I think that his intentions were one to help people and for the common man and the common people. And I think that we also forget that, didn't he give Dany the eggs? He was the one who had them in the beginning, and then he gave them to, what was that dude's name who gave them to Dany at her wedding?
Illyrio Patmos,
Yeah.
I think, got him from the first Sea Lord of Bravos.
Well,
and I don't know what they exchanged, but
show, we just see that he was a part of that. And he gave her these dragons. So when we think about why he's always been, he brings up her dad, he brings up her power before he said it to Tyrion. When he left a couple of seasons ago to go gather the sand snakes and everyone, right, and the Martells,
You mean Dorne? Yeah, which is just a sand snakes and Martell.
That's what everyone calls Dorne now, right? There was an element there of him also leaving because he was a little uncomfortable with Dany. So I think that he will continue to be, and I think that if there is a schism between, as we're seeing in these photos that you put up, between Jon and Dany, whether it has to do with his lineage, that is just going to be used as a tool, because I agree with Hax that Jon really doesn't care. He is his own man now. And it's going to be interesting, though, because Varys is always doing something that we don't see. So it's quite possible that an event occurs, and then we later find out that he was doing that the whole time, whenever, when we weren't really paying attention, because time does pass differently on the show. So I do see him kind of re-entering the story now. And, now that the White Walkers are gone, everyone can kind of reframe their alliances. And I think everyone will. And as far as if I think people in the North are going to go behind Dany, they might, because they pledged to Jon. But if they find out that, and Jon pledged to her, but if they find out that Jon's a Targaryen, doesn't that really leave Sansa as the leader of the North? So, Justin, you brought this up to me,
Here,
and I
here.
I think Sansa is going to play a much larger part. And we see her talking with Royce and kind of, palavering and speaking up and taking power. And I think that she is going to be very important because she also represents something straight. I mean, listen, all this lineage stuff is so complicated, and I think it's done so narratively on purpose to tell the audience that in the end, people are going to follow their own whims or their own self-interest or their own ideas. And all this lineage stuff is really only important when it's important.
Yeah, and I don't want to, because Robert has been in politics, so I'm really interested to get your feedback on this. I just do want to say that I have a video I've been working on forever that I am just full on for Sansa, because she has had the proper education for this. She has had the most experience with the nuances of court life. Her character's arc has been that of one that has suffered by people that have helped her. They have been in power and they have used their power to help her, but then it has always bit her in the ass, like Littlefinger, when she went to King's Landing. Obviously, like, it didn't go well. She was, used as a pawn in other people's games. So that's why I see her looking at Dany in the way she does, because she looks at those dragons and just doesn't see salvation. She sees being suppressed by them, because she sees what happens when Littlefinger saves her from King's Landing, right? Then that's fine for a while. Then she ends up married to Ramsay. So I think, visually speaking, too, they always show her looking at the dragons. And damn it, I forgot to put this in the picture. Sorry, guys, this OBS thing, was trying to get together. It'd be better next time. But look at how Arya is just mesmerized by the dragons and in awe, and it's magical to her and beautiful. Sansa looks at them, and there's just this like forbidding sense of just fear, and just she is definitely concerned. She looks at them as something that, yes, can use their power to help her, but also as soon as Dany isn't in line with her, she can just unleash those dragons and she's back in the same spot. I think Sansa strives for just independence, having nobody that has any power over her. I don't think she's so much wanting to rule the whole realm, but she doesn't want to have anybody that can do what has been done to her time and time again, save her using their power and then use that same power to suppress her. So but in one last thing on Birthright, I think that it is a little bit, we shouldn't be so dismissive about it in this world, because these people don't just look at it as like they're like trick that they have in their pocket, like that they can pull out and use and get power. They truly believe in it. So I think Dany will truly have conflict within, that she believes, she was the true claim. She doesn't use that as a political tool. She uses that like she believes that's what's supposed to happen. You know what I mean?
I don't disagree. I don't mean to say that it's not important in that world. What I mean to say is that I think that part of this whole story, right? Why this is set at this time in this world is because it's a transitionary stage, right? It's a high, like these are the watershed years, and people are beginning to think differently. So family, tradition, honor, oaths will always be important in this world as they are in ours. But in different times of history, they are used differently and seen differently. Oh. And I think that right now it's so scattered. If you asked one house, why do you support Dany? They'd say, first there was Joffrey, and then we said Jon was the king, so we followed Jon. But then Jon went over to, so it becomes so,
yeah.
No one's given their support to Dany yet, though, right? Yeah. None of the North have even tried to support her yet.
Yep.
They followed Jon.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. But, guys, she just sacrificed everything. Like, she just did as much as you could possibly do to win over the North. If they don't support her now, they never would. And maybe they never will. But I just think, I don't know. And ultimately, it was Arya that delivered the killing blow, so maybe there's conflict there about if she was needed, or and the show loves political stuff like that. I just think that they will recognize what she's given, and rally behind her. Maybe not even rally behind her, but rally together as the collective interest, more than just supporting Dany, but supporting everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the point of the story, though, is to show us how much she sacrificed, because I truly believe that she definitely has. I believe that she won't obtain the throne because of her actually protecting the people in which she wanted to hold power over, instead of just going for the mantle first, which is a characteristic of a good leader. She did the right thing, but this story is all about good intentions not panning out, with not having the good results. So it's this idea that, yes, they should be so appreciative of her, but also she came to a land that she had no connection to, and she saved them, which again is a noble ideal. But without the connection to them, vice versa, they don't have a connection. Robert, I'd really like your insight, because Hex, I'm completely with you. I just think that they're gonna play it like exactly how you said, but in the sense of, we believe this and we know this and we can understand this, but also we can understand why the North also is not going to be able to look at it in the same light, if that makes any sense. Like, she won't be rewarded for these good actions. Robert, somebody that has been in politics yourself over there, you're not part of the divorce of Europe right now. I know you got out of the biz, but what is your insight on this?
Well, I think that she will, Sansa, will recognize what Dany did, but I think that's a really short-term thing, to be honest. It's the because at some point quite soon, we saw it in the trailer, Dany's going to turn around and say, right now I'm going to go off and claim the Iron Throne. And that's a completely different issue. Sansa's already told her what she thinks about this. She thinks that the North should have independence. Dany has already granted the Iron Islands effective independence when she was talking to Yara a couple of seasons ago. So I think that Sansa will think that she's got a fair right to ask for that. And I think that at the moment, Dany's forces in the north are actually so small that there's not huge amounts she can do about this. She's got like a couple of dozen Unsullied and Dothraki left, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But it's not going to be huge amounts. Both of those were right at the forefront of the battle. There will not be many of them left. So basically, she either burns Winterfell to a crisp with her dragons, or she goes south and regroups. If Sansa just stands up and says, you know what, we're going to declare independence. So I think that's where it's going to have to go, is that Dany's going to turn around and say, well, I'm going to go down south and try and claim what I think is mine. She's got dragons. That was good enough for the first Targaryen invasion. They had 3 dragons. That was all that they really needed. So she's going to go down, and that will allow Sansa to consolidate up in the north. I think that's what it is. The bits that are so kind of the moving parts of what happens, as I said earlier, with Jon and knowledge of Jon's parentage and the fact that he's the true king. And I think, although, I know we're talking about succession and it being complicated, I think the show have tried to simplify it. In the books, it is going to be very complicated. There's going to be a proper Targaryen succession crisis there. On the show, they've basically said Jon is the rightful heir, the rightful Targaryen heir, and then they're going to go from that. So that's the position that they've set up in the show. If Dany pushes on herself wanting the throne, then she is going against what the Targaryen succession rights are, presumably because she either doesn't believe it, as she seemed to imply when she was responding to Jon, or because, as was Davos's plan that he dropped in episode 1, and they kind of like moved off of it quite quickly, but I'm sure they will come up on this again. His plan was that the 2 of them should marry. And that would solve a huge amount of the sort of the geopolitical problems they've got going on there. But I think the bigger issue will be the fact that Jon, I think, he doesn't want to be king. He probably is bored and tired of war now. He's lost so many people. He was wanting to give it all up a couple of seasons ago and then got persuaded to come back into it. I think that he will almost certainly have had enough now. And the idea of another war is not going to excite him.
Yeah.
But guys, I'm afraid, sorry, I'm going to have to nip off because I've got my own live stream starting quite soon. So guys, I'm afraid I'm going to have to love you and leave you at this point.
Take care.
Appreciate you. And Axel, did you just send the message that you are departing in 5 minutes?
No, that wasn't me. I'm good to go.
That was me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I thought you were both breaking my heart. No, thank you so much for stopping by, Robert, as always. And we're going to be on a panel that Con of Thrones, ironically, was invited to come on and do the Age of Heroes, and you're on there too. So I'm looking forward to it. If you guys do any super chats, let it be known that does go towards my stay and my airfare. I'm not doing a GoFundMe to get there or anything like that. But if you do make donations as a Patreon or anything like that, I like to let people know where it's going. It's not just going towards this awesome background I got of cardboard black paper. So yeah, no, and I'm very excited for that. And thank you as always. And I will be watching your stream later and look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Great
See you, Robert.
to see you all again. Thanks, everyone in the chat, and I shall see you soon. Take care.
Good show tonight.
Just one thing I want to touch on really quick is how we always look at with parallels between like Varys and Littlefinger. I think it's just mirroring they both are doing things behind the scenes which seem underhanded, right? And shady. But Littlefinger's trying to get power. Varys is trying to empower the people. I'm not saying Varys is perfect, but I think the show deals with the idea of, because this is very present and relevant today with people that, they don't want a politician in politics. They want outside the box thinking about, things, it's like, hey, I want a pilot that thinks outside the box. Like, it's almost like, I'm not won't go into a political thing, but it is, and because people are so fed up with the system that they think putting somebody in that is just like whatever, your everyman or 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 something else is going to work. They just, we don't want the norms, but it's, I think it's the idea that, understanding the nuances and, in the ways to get, like LBJ was a good example of this, somebody that was a leader that understood like how to get things done in the Senate and all that. Still not saying he was the best guy in the world, but people that understand how to work within the system. So it deals, I think, with that, people that just want to break the wheel, in the argument against, well, you should probably be somebody, this is just my opinion, but I think they want you to think about this, that knows how the wheel works, because you need to be effective within the system you're in to have change. You just can't go, blow it to pieces. I guess there's, the Seven might be doing all right, but, our Cersei. So I just think that that's important to think about. Like, maybe the games are done being played by Varys. It's how is it going to pan out, all the games he's been playing, but let's talk a little bit here about the Targaryen fleet. I want to go to you on this, Johnny. Who do you think are on these ships? This seems to be maybe an implication that we get Yara coming back, and we could get forces from places like the Riverlands, or even the Reach. We think we got Sam from the Reach. I mean, like, essentially right now a lot of single characters represent whole regions in this show, unfortunately. So do you think that this could be, is this just filled with the troops that are in Winterfell, or is this filled with troops that they're going out and recruiting?
So definitely thinking the Iron Islands, but you also have the Manderleys, who weren't at the Battle of Winterfell and already have a fleet, and they could have already had it ready here with the dragon on the ship. This kind of goes back to, I just want to say something really quick that I thought of with Varys. I think we're going to see a slow descent into madness with Dany. Yes, she deserves it. I think Jon's actually going to concede at this point. I really think they are. It doesn't even matter if the North wants to be with her. Like you said, there's not even enough people there. She can just go to the Iron Islands. Yara likes Dany. So I think they're going to do that. Like I said earlier, we could have the Golden Company flipping, but I just think that would be too easy for Dany and Jon, or for the people to win this war. Traditionally, you think the Golden Company would flip for the Targs, but they were founded by Blackfyre, so that would be a little stretch here. I think it's just going to be this overwhelming force, and we're going to see like Aegon the Conqueror did, except with 2 dragons, and we might even get some in the night trying to kill the dragons while they're sleeping, possibly, so to speak, on Dragonstone. But I digress. As far as the other people coming in, I think they're going to have a significant number of people, but nowhere near as much as what's going to happen with Cersei. But I do think Robb and Aaron and the Vale, they're going to have some of those forces. Seemingly all the Knights of the Vale are dead, though, so I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if it was just Ironborn, they do have their own sigils. So, Hax, how do you essentially the question is, who do you think is on these boats? And the follow up to that is, is this an indication that they are going out in because bringing back these other realms into the fold? I think that would be advantageous story wise, because we are talking about the power structure of the 7 kingdoms. Not just the North and the capital. So
I think that for what we have left, I think that like there's a few families of the North and more northern than King's Landing that still exist that could be on these boats. But I think that the point is that it's a united front, that they're together, showing us that there's still a fleet, to kind of counteract the fleet that we know Cersei has. So as far as who is on these boats, it's just, I mean, I think it has to just symbolize their collective group. And, as opposed to marching down, showing a more efficient form of travel. So they're probably doing this to kind of explain, why everything is so expedited in the story whenever it happens. I don't think that it's going to mean anything like that, like some, saving grace team from anywhere else kind of saving the day. I think it's just supposed to be everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's what I always like. Like we can get into the lore as much as we want and be like, oh my god, are they gonna, like bring over, like the fiery hand is a good example of that. They were never even mentioned in the show, but yet so many people want them, and there's just that realization that you had to step outside for a second and be like, who would know about this? And like, how does this work story wise and just thematically? Yeah, you're right. This is just showing that hey, they ain't the only ones with boats, and we got a battle coming.
Yeah.
But it's still fun to do. But you know me, so I'm in agreement with that totally. We just got a super chat. Thank you so much, Tiziana. I always mispronounce your name, and you're one of my Patreons. So I will refund you
Vitali?
for last month. Yes, Vitali. So yeah, I should just use the last name. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions or insight that you would like to add, please let us know. And that goes for everybody. I'm trying to keep up with the chat here. So we do see John in this preview. What's that?
Oh, can I say something about the boats?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to add a little something to it so to keep it flowing and then go to you. John is seen leaving separately. So we see this fleet going probably towards King's Landing. Let's just assume Danny's not going to, run away. So John is seen leaving with Davos to go to King's Landing. So I'm assuming that's for some type of a meeting that could result in him stopping the war from ensuing. But I just wanted to inject that in there so you could add on with not only what's going on with these boats, but what's going on with John going there as an individual, putting his neck on the line again, as many Starks do.
Oh, you want me to talk now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Well, for the first thing, I just want to say about the boats. I like the way that Hax said that it's just like kind of, they show these shots that are like, when you're looking at it in trailer, it's just like a show of force. But I think it's interesting that why are they showing us boats? You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that makes
Yeah.
Why are they showing us boats? And who else do we know who has boats? Euron, right?
Yeah.
So it just makes me think we're going to see something happen at sea.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't seen the sea in a long time. As a matter of fact, we've been at freaking Winterfell for 3 episodes. We barely went to King's Landing. I was just excited to see a boat. So I just wanted to kind of chime in and say, I like boats. It looked like a great shot. And it just makes me think we're going to get we're going to see a boat battle. Something like that could happen. And the last time they did that with Euron and all the boats, and I love that.
Yeah.
So
I will see a motorboat.
See it. What's that?
We do have a comment in the we got something I want to address here. Highlander says, guys, remember trailers are usually cute at putting together editing them in the wrong order. He's just saying that they're out of context. I constantly rant about this, about how I am very aware in that you're absolutely correct. Trailers are usually outsourced to boutiques. They're called trailer houses. Suicide Squad essentially was edited by a trailer house because they did a good job with their trailer, and then they're like, hey, make a whole movie. That doesn't turn out as well. The reason I don't analyze, and a lot of times there's good examples, and I'm not going to shame anybody, of YouTubers and people on Reddit and everybody, podcasters, that are doing deep dives in the trailers, and what they're doing is they're saying what the directors and the showrunners are trying to tell you through this, and what they're doing is analyzing a piece of marketing that was completely outsourced. But I'm just looking at what's happening here that we're seeing. Like, we do see there's Targaryen ships. I'm not looking at it in any sort of like with any sense of continuity. Just, it is a little surprising for me to see the Targaryen fleet. That's why I'm featuring these. But yes, I'm with you, and I think it's foolish to read too much into marketing material. I think it's more important to just realize whatever they're showing us here is most likely going to be subverted. They're trying to set expectations for unification of the North. The audio was cut throughout different sequences of scenes that were not, actually. There is no continuity within the visuals, but there's continuity within your audio is what I'm trying to say. So they're mixing in Danny saying we got to win the final war, then it cuts to another scene different time, different place, and everybody stands up and cheers. So we don't know what they're cheering for. But they're trying to push the fact of unification. So I take that into consideration. But yeah, absolutely good point, and something to keep in mind for everybody, that sometimes you are literally just looking at a piece of marketing, nothing more.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Justin, because and there's nothing, I mean, it's always fun to look at the trailer and look at the pictures and talk about things, but there has historically in television been a battle between showrunners and either the outsourced trailers or the marketing department, because a lot of these are also cut in-house in a totally different department. And, you have things like, if anybody was a fan of Mad Men, Matthew Weiner famously just said to them, I'm cutting the trailers. You can never show anything without my permission. And they agreed to it. And the trailer would be like a person opening a door, another person waving, a person saying hi. And then that would be the trailer for next week. So it was almost kind of like a joke. So it's fun to look at it, but they do just kind of stick things in here. Now, my understanding is that Dan and Dave are actually involved with the trailers on Game of Thrones. So I don't think they cut them. They don't sit there and make them, but they do watch them and make sure that they're not like overly spoilery, or that they don't have things they don't want to be in them.
Yes, and these ones are, I made sure of that. These ones have had actually oversight from them, almost completely ran by them, because they didn't want to put out anything at all.
But there's one thing that's not, right, which is photos. They don't control those. So I read something that said they don't control the photos. So a lot of times when they do these photo dumps, there are things in there that they particularly didn't want out there, but HBO thought would look good on a website.
Well, yeah, they're wearing that because that's what the art director did.
Yeah,
so
Yeah, interesting.
Business stuff. It's fun stuff, but
yeah,
it's like, it's just like we always have to remember. These are just people doing a job, all of them. The actors, Dan and Dave, all of them. They're just regular people doing a job, and they go home to their wife or their husband, and then they just live their lives.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even watch the episodes. I just watch the trailers, and you see how much I know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always try. Yeah, I've never seen any Westworld. I have Hax come on. I listen to the first few things he says because we go live right after it airs, and I just kind of piggyback off that. And like, worst comes to worst, I'll just just cite some basic, bland blanket statement like I think this is gonna be a catalyst for conflict. They're like, what the hell? Okay, I like the philosophy of the show. Okay, thank you. But yeah, no, and that's something that I always like to embrace, is that it's fun to talk about the show as a fan. Then it's fun to criticize the show as somebody that is studying the structure of the actual narrative. And then it's fun if you have experience with production work, to look at the editing and stuff like that. I think the best thing that can be done in the situation like we have all put ourselves in, because we enjoy making content, is to understand where our criticism is coming from. Like, is it a consumer criticizing a finished product of other people's work? Are you criticizing the process of it? I think that even we ourselves, and especially content creators in general, sometimes just get the line so blurred that they don't know anymore, like, where they stand as far as like they're critiquing, where that is coming from, what the point of their commentary is. Is it to inform? Is it to, critique in a way that you are pointing out like flaws within structure in the narrative? Are you just saying things that you would like to see that didn't happen? Because that's valuable. Consumer criticism is valuable because they want critics to be people that are watching their shows, because they want to make sure that the people watching their shows like it or don't like it, and other people want to hear the thoughts of people like them. So I'm not downing on just the fan point of view. I like to inject it all, because I mean, we're not just watching these shows because we want to break down like the technical aspects or the story structure. We enjoy that, and I think that adds to the content. Like, look, Hax, you just wrote a book. You know what I mean? Like, you know what it's like to sit down and have to write a story, and you finished a book, which that's something that people don't usually do. You know how many people I know in writing circles that I've been a part of, including myself, that never finish anything. So just bravo to you for even doing that. So I think it's important to put the correct label on what we're doing is the point. So, but I wanted to mention that comment because that speaks truth. So, and to clarify that we are aware of what we're looking at, so.
Yeah. In a conduit to criticism of the show. Do you guys think that we'll just call it criticism, or maybe forceful criticism, was warranted this last episode? I feel that, like, watching it, I loved it. Watching it, I thought that it was definitely too dark. There are certain things about the battle that I like looked to my wife and I was like, why aren't they doing that? Like, why isn't this actively happening? But overall, with all of that, I didn't feel that my enjoyment of the overall episode was hindered. I still loved it. It was still amazing. Badass Arya doing badass Arya shit. So what are your guys' thoughts? Like, because my first video was more positive, and I came out with another video, kind of describing, not agreeing with all the criticism, but kind of explaining it and showing why people had issues with it. Do you feel that the audience was overly nitpicky, or do you feel that things as it being too dark were valid concerns?
Before I blow up, because I had to fight myself from doing the first ever, and I don't want to do this, and I wasn't going to be overly negative, but a response video to another content creator's video, because this has been draining me, this negativity. And honestly, I mean, you all know that I a lot of times will have issues with that really bother me and make it hard for me to see the good, and I've gotten around that, and the shows that do that and the properties that do that, I just have chosen not to cover, because that's not something that's helpful to anybody, including myself. My issue here is I feel that there are issues with that episode, but the issues that are being brought up and the focus of their argument, their sticking points, are always, I'm always one for, like, debate, and I love being able to play devil's advocate. I think it's the best way to understand something is to say, okay, what was wrong with this episode? Let me argue against the Long Night. I can, you know what I mean? But I would be like, oh, well, I wouldn't be using, the whole idea of they didn't adhere to conventional warfare, especially when it's armchair general giving it. The reasons cited for hating this episode usually aren't justified, but even worse, it's the fact that they're just not saying what's true. They didn't enjoy it, and that is something that they have the right to voice. Everybody should voice how they feel about things. It's the problem of they are saying that it's structurally flawed. They are saying that the continuity is, just completely gone. Plotting character has been thrown to the side. All this stuff. None of this makes sense that an assassin assassinated it. We didn't get a hero in a story that doesn't have heroes. Everything that you hear people talk about, Song of Ice and Fire, meaning the things they brag about, it doesn't have your fantasy tropes. It doesn't have your typical archetypes of heroes. It's more gray than that. There is no good versus evil. But then when they don't get their good hero killing their evil villain, and they don't get their high magic and false prophecy being literally fulfilled, and they get all these things that they at one point and usually continuously brag about the subversion of, when that doesn't happen, they get pissed. But when Arya, the assassin, assassinates every Frey in the world, they clap. When she assassinates the Night King, they say, oh, well, I don't, I needed Jon to do that. But then they want to talk about there's no heroes, there's no this. Aspects like, why did Dany not follow the plan? Why'd they even bother making a plan? Number one,
emotion.
How many times have we said we're going to do something and not followed through? A lot. And it's, again, a reoccurring theme through almost every battle, and especially mirrors Jon's experience in Battle of the Bastards. And Jon then has shown his progression through this by trying to convince Dany to stick to the plan. So just the point that it makes me just more upset that not only are they just being negative to pick it apart and talk about how much better the books are, is a silly argument because books are a different medium. It's not better or worse. It's different. It's not easier to tell a visual story. It's just different. But they are just sitting there trying to just like shit on the show and prove, and they think they've been vindicated. So many content creators that have been negative think they've been vindicated by this episode. I just say, I guess if I wanted to do that, which I don't, because I feel this show is something that gives me joy and provides me with a lot of positivity in my life, which is needed. Something I don't have an abundance of. I'm not looking for this to make me unhappy, but if I wanted to prove that this show was like flawed, like in a structured sense, meaning that it's just a bad story. Like if you turn this in you're taking some writing course and you turn this in, your teacher would have a lot of red marks all over it. I would use Beyond the Wall. Okay, that's a good argument. It doesn't ruin the series, but this is not Beyond the Wall. This is a very hard battle to deal with. You don't have as many character moments because you're fighting these mindless whites for the most part. Yeah, they should have injected more one-on-one battles with the Night King, the other White Walkers and so forth. But the point is, you feel more of these emotional transitions in Battle of the Bastards because even though you don't like Ramsay, like he's a human and you're more aware of his wants and desires, so you know that there is more on the line for him losing other than just losing his life, which might sound a little bit silly to people, but that actually is very important. You know what these people live for, so when you lose a life that you know the purpose that person sees that life serving, it's more impactful. It's harder to get behind and get the fulfillment from seeing mindless zombies getting killed. But that is a binding force for this story, to put people together and show that it's actually easier to fight them than it is to fight, Cersei. And they continue to fight amongst themselves. So that's my rant. I think that it's been very toxic. And I think it's just a lot of people are mad their theories didn't pan out. And they need to realize that just because they love story and they love the finished product, that if they don't learn how stories are crafted, then their theories, when they talk crap about fan fiction, the only difference between a theory from a content creator and fan fiction is the fan fiction was labeled correctly. That's all it is. Yeah. So I think people are just upset that things didn't pan out for them as much, and they wanted everything, again, that they say they always love about the show not to happen. And that's it on it. And then some people have been positive.
That was good.
Go ahead, Hax.
No, you're good. I just want to say that was really good, Justin. Yeah, I agree.
No, I agree too. I went on a big rant about this Friday, and it's Arya killing the Night King is, when you step back and look at it, it's fitting. That's her whole journey. Death on two legs, killed, death personified. It's just it's actually kind of beautiful. That's her whole basically life mission. I think the thing with Arya right now is she gonna be able to give up her list for love, possibly with Gendry. I know that sounds cheesy, but I think Arya's humanity is at stake here. I think that's something she was worried about. And when you go back to the episode, yes, it was dark, it was grainy, but the actual attack of the Whites, when they hit the Unsullied, if you didn't feel the intensity, I did. When you're running with Sam, I was scared. I thought someone was going to die every second of that episode. And that's what you want to feel. Sometimes episodes make you feel emotions that you don't like. Doesn't mean it was a bad episode. And Justin, I agree with you. I can pick apart Beyond the Wall all day. This, I can find some small things about, like, why did you just have Ghost run out into the dark? There's just some little things. But it went pretty beautifully. As far as prophecy goes, and I know you like that as well, it was choppy. It wasn't clear. It was, it was something that kind of fell into place. I don't think Melisandre even knew this until she saw Arya. She was like, oh, shit, that's who's going to kill the Night King. Like, when she got to Winterfell, I know she said, you will kill Blue Eyes. I think that was just a small prophecy because of how blurry her visions are, what she sees in the flames or whatnot. And it's weird, whatever the hell she did with Arya, because that's against what Mel is about. But go ahead. I'll get to rambling all damn day.
No, and thank you guys. And then I want Axel's thoughts on this. Again, my point is, label where your criticism is coming from correctly, but also story is bad when you throw your characterization and true character out the window for the sake of injecting conflict. And that happens with Sansa, that happens with Beyond the Wall. This episode didn't really have a lot of that. With Arya and Mel, there was a little bit of just making that connection stronger, in just kind of reinforcing the foreshadowing, because they didn't know right away it'd be Arya. But my final point, and I will shut up, is I want people to think about this. They decided, and they said this, in their little post show where they brag about how they decided to focus on Jon's face, not Sam's, when he got the news of his parents. And like they were like breaking the conventions of film making. I was like, yeah, you probably would want that shot to be on Jon's face, not the back of Sam's head. But anyways, they said that they didn't know it was going to be Arya until the third season. The way they made the decision to have it be Arya that kills the Night King isn't because she's the only person that could do it, or not because that had any overarching actual consequences. It was because they felt that like they could justify it, and they couldn't give it to Jon because they didn't want him to come off as the hero. So all I'm saying is you have to realize that the Night King just needed to die. Who did it was really not important as far as the story goes, meaning it doesn't have these consequences down the line that affect anything from one way or the other. So, if you're not happy with Arya killing the Night King because you thought it should have been done a different way, just realize the only thing that they needed to do story-wise is kill the Night King. So who kills the Night King, whether you agree with it or not, does not substantially change the fabric of this story. And that's it.
Well, as far as the negativity goes, I think that there's two facets to it. The first facet is that I think that we are going through the biggest technological revolution and communication revolution in the history of all mankind. We only have a 10,000 year history of civilization, people. Okay. That is nothing. That is a drop in the bucket of the world, right? That's like a dinosaur farting. And people have problems with self-identity on fandom and that being a part of their life and it being unhealthy and they expressing that through the internet and through their critique of something else, right? People are fans of displacement. This is how we act as emotional human beings. So it gets me down, but you know what? Actually, I quoted on a podcast Heath and I did, one of my favorite musicians, Peter Gabriel, has a song called Digging in the Dirt. And when you dig in the dirt and you dig in your emotions and you get upset, you learn. So it's best for us to try to learn from it. And when someone gets angry at me online or get angry about something, it's sometimes mystifying to me, but I just either kind of have to mute it for a little while or try not to engage and blow it up into something else because it's really not about me. That's a separate issue. As far as this whole prophecy and the book, that I find intensely interesting because I thought the whole point of this story was that it's about breaking prophecies and traditions and all that kind of stuff. So I don't understand why people want this prophecy to be true. I don't get it. It's like the guy writes an anti-war, anti-dogmatic treatise and you take out of it something different. It reminds me of one of my other favorite musicians, Kurt Cobain, when he found that his biggest fans were the people who used to beat him up in high school because they wanted to go to his concert and bounce into other dudes and be aggressive when he was singing emotional, expressive songs. So I understand people are attached to the book and to the theories, but the book is so much denser and so much richer. And you can't even compare it. You just can't compare it. So I just hope people at least watch the show and have fun, because to me, the greatest thing out of anything, Lost, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, whatever fandom, Star Wars, Marvel that I've been a part of, is the people, not the actual story. The story is actually secondary to you guys that I'm talking to now and everyone in the chat and all that kind of stuff. I'm more interested in the friends I've gained in my real life than I am in this story, because the story is replaceable And next time we're going to be talking about robots and how they exist in the real world. So it's all good to me. I'd rather get to know everyone here than argue about the prince that was promised. And if someone really wants that to happen in the show and it doesn't, I would just say you have some really awesome books to read. And they're much better probably because this show's an adaptation, and adaptations are always going to be a shadow of the original.
And again, it's not the same medium. It cannot be what it is. It is not. It's really just not fair. And at this point, what books? There are no books. I just think, I mean, story is meant to do exactly what you just said. Story. We've always told stories, and we do that because we are trying to understand life. Story is life and metaphor, and allegory and so forth. But it's just the issue is with the prophecy and stuff like that. You're not going to get. This is a story. How many times we have to see people burn their kids to go just lose as the greatest general in the Seven Kingdoms, arguably. Stannis burns his kid in order to win a battle, and he's like the greatest tactician, and he loses to like the tactics of essentially of a butcher's boy in Ramsay. This is the folly of that belief, and it's very clear that it is the decisions that are made because of the insistent or the wanting to fulfill prophecy or defy it that affect people adversely, sometimes in a positive way. It's about what these beliefs do to people, not a literal fulfillment. So when I read a blog or an essay that they took so much work explaining why Arya is not Azor Ahai, it really boggles just the brain, because I don't see how they can be so much immersed in the story and have all these ideas and know all these details, but not understand that there is not going to be a literal fulfillment of Azor Ahai. The gods will never be present in this story. Both showrunners and George have said this. You will never know their true intentions. We know they do things, but it's almost like everybody's just continuously looking into the flames, like just like Stannis. You know what I mean? Like like we watch a show, like you said, it's like literally watching an anti-war documentary, and then talking about like how who's gonna win the best war, do war the most efficiently and so forth. Again, it's not just me saying I understand it better. I just think that it again comes from a place of saying I'm disappointed Arya did this, opposed to saying this doesn't fit our story because there needs to be Azor Ahai, and that didn't check all the boxes. And it's just, this is a different level of, I just guess, perception of what they're watching. I don't know. I mean, Hax, do you think that that's wrong of me to say that it's crazy to think that prophecy will be fulfilled in a matter-of-fact, literal way? It really bothers me that this is something people are so just obsessed with.
Yeah, like George has come out and said that prophecies aren't meant to be literal. Like, I'm pretty sure that's the exact quote that he said even. I think overall, some people liked it, some people didn't. And the reasons that they didn't, they feel that are justified. And overall, I mean, my hope is that they don't lose the experience of Game of Thrones because of that. We have like 4 hours of footage left, a complete story in 3 weeks. That's my goal. And even in our own chat here, not everyone is comfortable with it being Arya who killed the Night King, but I mean it happened, and maybe we'll get some more. Maybe we'll get, maybe it happened so early and so quickly because there's still a big twist to come with the Night King, such as, a Night King must always exist, similar how to a Stark must always exist in Winterfell, and the three-eyed raven has kind of always been pursued by the Night King. So I think that there may be more. And yeah, I really think that, I don't know. I'm hopeful for the next episodes, and I think that in the long run, no one's going to remember how much they disliked it. Well, maybe they will, because everyone flocked to IMDb and made it a poor review for whatever reason. But
what is it on IMDb? I didn't look.
It's the second worst rated.
Really?
The worst is still Unbent, Unbroken, and Unbowing. something like
I
that.
can think of 15 episodes that are worse than this one,
Yeah,
honestly.
guys, I literally don't understand. We saw the pinnacle of dragon fighting after 10 years of waiting for this action. Like that alone, it was a 10 out of 10 scene. Just seeing them in the clouds going, highlighted by the moon. I mean, nothing was a better action shot than that ever. I just
I think that you spoke to this, Hax. It's people like I mean, it should, if you watch my channel, I am constantly talking about hashtag Arya shit. I don't like seeing a story that is not really about the blood feud being, you shouldn't murder your way to victory. That's not a theme of this story. So I think that fundamentally it does, kind of not fit the overall themes within the story, but I think it's a wide canvas, so you can have examples of, because just like good intentions don't have good results all the time, you have situations in which the bad intentions don't, put you in an early grave. We see right now Cersei is benefiting off of hers. I just think that it's the idea of people mistaking the death of the Night King's function as being, it's not a story about who is going to be able to kill the Night King and what that means for that person. It's a story about what the presence of this, this army of literal death coming towards them does to the living within the story. It is not a story about going about tactically and figuring out, how to tactically accomplish this, technically go about it. Oh, we have to do this and that. But I guess the prophecy, the red herring of the prophecy leads to that type of thinking, right? They're like, well, you got to kill him by, being born this way, by forging a sword this way, and it has to happen at this time. So it's that mixture of prophecy in not knowing really anything about the Night King that leaves people disappointed, because they do feel, and it's natural to feel, since we never found out a lot about the Night King, to think that we're going to get to find out about the Night King. But actually, technically, it just was consistent. They didn't ever give us anything about the Night King. We saw him do one action that wasn't, going against the wall or trying to get past it. The only other action we see, and the only way to know what a character's true character is by action, is doing picking up Craster's baby. I think that was just to invoke more empathy. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. And I think that we get caught up in what does it mean to kill the Night King? Like the person that kills the Night King, rather than what does the Night King's death mean?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Well,
go ahead, Johnny.
Well, I was just going to say, as far as I don't remember, but prophecy does bite your prick off every time, as Marwin says. And I don't... The books only mention... We have the one scene with the others, and then we have a couple of scenes with whites. There's not much in the old books. It's kind of the same thing. It's very sparse. There's more in the show about the White Walkers and the Night King, which isn't even in the book. So there's more to actually speculate on in the show than there is in the book. So that's what throws me off there. I just think that's not the real threat. That was the threat from Mother Earth. Now that they've controlled that, they still got to redeem themselves. They still have to make up for what they've done, this destruction of the planet that they did. They're literally destroying themselves. The Night King was a human, was probably a Stark. It's human on human no matter what you look at it. Yeah, there are others, but the way it's set up in the show, that's a human. Those are Craster's babies. It's just a different side. I actually kind of feel for the Night King. I was glad he got a smirk off.
Yeah. Hey, don't forget, the Night King is a cripple, a bastard, and a broken thing. And that's what this story is about. And I think that that's interesting. And Justin, I like the point you're making. And you know what? Overall, I don't have a problem. If somebody doesn't like that Arya killed the Night King, I'm willing to listen. Hell, I might even read that blog about how Azor Ahai is coming, because this is made, I'm not a book reader. I've been waiting to read the books. I've read Fire and Blood and a little bit of the other history one. But I haven't read the books proper, and I'm going to read them. I just ordered it from the library yesterday. Support your local library. And it makes me more interested, this prophecy and everything. And I'm intrigued at why, and it because I found it's people across the board. It's intriguing to me. And I don't have, people have a connection to the books, and they're wonderful, and in this world, I've enjoyed it so much. But I think, Justin, you bring up a great point that, and Johnny too, that, the Night King is symbolic of something. We didn't really know that much about him until we kind of find out this season how much of a troll he is, and how he likes to stare people down and make fun of them, and, all that kind of, and he was arrogant. I mean, his death in a way was arrogance, right? He just stood there over Bran, had to lord over him, go to pull the sword out slowly to show how powerful he is.
Sheesh on the back, not a good idea, hard to do.
The thing that no one has mentioned yet, and I want to mention it now, is Arya went to assassinate him, not to battle him with honor. She was going to stab him in the back if he didn't turn around. That was an assassination. Her goal was to end this.
Yes.
And that was the goal. And that is why I liked it. And it was also just fun for me in a meta way, because I was like, I turned to my wife after and I said, wow, what are they going to do for 3 episodes? This is so fun. Now we can sit around and think about what's going to happen. And it was kind of cool. But again, I'm not upset when someone disagrees. No. It's just when it's the attachment aspect, like in life and in all, when you attach to something so much, you got to kind of let go and let the story take you on a journey and have fun with it. Because I just want everyone to have fun.
Absolutely. And have these conversations that we're having. Because like you said, he was, almost cocky. And that the prologue of the book is the first attack with the Rangers. They do have a language, and it's described as being mocking. Okay, so the Night King is a narrative tool that is utilized in the show to show perspective, because in the books, of course, there is no Night King. They are just a singular force. They don't ever have any verbiage that says that describes them as different. When they come, it's always elated to nature. They are very much just wanting you to believe that they are uniform, and that they, they have wants and needs, because they have language. Anything that has language has wants and needs. And they also create art. So that means they are looking for meaning, usually. I'm not a psychologist, but that is usually what art is equated to. We create art because we're either trying to express meaning or find meaning. So it's like this, they're shrieking, which is like the way they speak. It's described as a shriek, but it's described as mocking, as well. So like that, so the more you individualize and give a reason for why the Night King's doing what they're doing, goes against like the idea of the Night King. Because in the books, again, they don't have to have that POV from the Night King. They can, it works better just because of the medium. So it's like, I guess it's a little bit of that understanding, and just, it's normal to want more. I get that. And it's normal to have issues. It's just not okay to say that to make a statement like, oh, this story built up the Night King for so long, and now they just totally fucked up the story. This is bad storytelling. And when people say, oh, now that they were killed off so quickly, what are we going to do for the rest of the season? I think that at first as well. But let's think about this. How much of the White Walkers have been at the forefront of our story? How many even minutes? I'd like to see the numbers on that. This story has been 80%, if not more, of the jostling for power in them in the background, and that is the meaning of them ignoring the real threat. They have been ignored for the whole time, so getting rid of them quickly is in line with what's been happening. Like, we are going to have no trouble filling 3 episodes with the jostling for power, because we filled 7 seasons with it. I would argue the White Walkers have been on screen for less than 20% of the time.
Oh, they're the ultimate red herring. The ultimate.
Yeah, but like, should they be?
I don't know. Like that's where we're at, though.
Yeah, I agree with that though, and I see where Hax is coming from. I think that there's a difference here, Justin. It's like what we're talking about: the Night King and the White Walkers, and kind of magic and mythology, right? And it's that what Night King and the White Walkers are only a part of that magic and mythology. And we may have seen that part go, but again, I want to say that I think that that's still a part of the story and is. I don't think we're going to tune in tonight and Bran's going to all of a sudden wake up and be like, hey, everybody, I'm back. Like, magic's gone. I think there's more to come. And also, I do want to say this, as Kerri has mentioned in the chat, anyone who is upset about the way that this has been interpreted, you're going to have a lot of other chances, because there's something called streaming wars that are happening now, and HBO has their golden goose, and that golden goose is called A Song of Ice and Fire. And we are going to get multiple other series. We're going to get mini series. We're going to get one-off movies. They are going to milk this until it is dry. So if you think Marvel and Star Wars are going to have series on Disney Plus, wait till HBO Go has a thing that just says the Game of Thrones universe, and it's all this different stuff. And you're going to get different people involved. So, you're going to have fun with it and realize its interpretation.
I'm making my own prequel, by the way.
Send your script now to HBO. They'll probably read it. They don't want Brian Cogman's.
HBO, you're greenlit. I do want to say thank you to the super chats. Amberlyn, thank you so much. Kerri, thank you so much. I'm trying to keep up with this, and yeah, I just think that these are the conversations that should be had about the show. Talking about it's interesting about how people still want to believe in the prophecy, because that's very telling, because that's spiritual belief, and we want to have our beliefs be true, and sometimes we try to will them to be true. Like Tyrion says that you should never believe something's true just because you want it to be true. But I'm not taking one side on that or another, but yes, it's very telling that people do still expect to see a literal fulfillment, but it shouldn't be led to, hey, you're a big dummy conversation. It should be led to, just conversations like we have in Westworld so often, talking about agency and free will and stuff like that. That's, why some like Lost, I know you love Lost, Axel, and one day you're going to get me to like it. But that.
Wait, you're not going to say a Lost, because Lost was all about this, baby.
No. I'm making that point that the critical response to Lost is bad. But it really spawned podcasting and this fandom, mentality that in this whole community that we have now, because they left so much unanswered, and it was so open to interpretation and arguably inconsistent and failed to establish antagonists. But the point is, a show that is critically, shit on. And that's why I was poisoned against it when I was at Second City. My teachers just poisoned me against it, and you're going to get me to like it one day. It opened conversation, though. You know what I mean? It opened up doors to talk to people from different walks of life learn. I think that's what's great about it.
Hey, look, listen, even the story of Lost is a guy, is Damon Lindelof, is a guy who grew up in the town next to me in New Jersey, a Jewish guy who later got into Buddhism and became an atheist. Then they brought Carlton Cuse, who's a practicing Catholic, onto the show, and they worked out their own not issues, but discussions they had and love for each other through the show. And just as we talk about Game of Thrones and we see the Night King's a big troll and he just makes fun of people, and then we have these fights in the community, it's all so meta, man. And it's really interesting to me. And that's why you have a week like last week, this week too, it's like kind of a little depressing because you see people upset. But it furthers us to have discussions like this and people in the chat. And if we're all open about it and just talk about it, hopefully we can come to some sort of realizations that the reason why we all love it. You know what I mean? Like, I always try to say, like, I can never get too mad at somebody else that has a differing opinion when we're talking about a made up show that we have both chosen to love. So it's kind of wonderful to me. And that's why I try to concentrate on the positivity and look ahead. And I do just want to mention one thing about the episode tonight and we saw a little bit in the preview, which is that I am really looking forward, and I don't know if I don't want to change the subject, Justin, if you want it to continue, but I would like to know people's opinion on Euron in the show, because some people hate him and think he's like a dumb frat boy, and some people love him. I'm on the side of he's needed fun when Cersei's in the room, and I think that Euron is one of the most fun characters to come onto the show, and he gives me great joy.
Yes.
I do want to speak to thank you to my mods that evidently somebody was posting spoilers in the chat. Congratulations, you're a piece of crap. That's the highlight of your day. So, and thank you to my mods. If you ever, are about to have a kid and don't want to know the sex of the baby, I'm going to try to find that out and spoil that for you. I will ruin your life. I'm not a great guy. Thank you.
Change your medical tests.
Yeah. I will. Yeah.
I'm going to be nice.
Doc, don't tell me it's cancer. He doesn't need to know.
Going back to Euron, I love him. I love him, man. And I don't think I did as much until he had the line about fucking Cersei, and then if things go south, then he just tips out. Because I think that like solidified who he is as a character. He has his own interests at heart, and even if you look at the first time, Yara talks to Dany about this person bringing, not only a 1,000 ships, but his big cock to, for Dany. It's like he's so dude, it's so good, man. I know that some people don't like him, but just the idea of this arrogance and this aggression, self-serving, I love it, dude. He's good in my opinion.
Oh, well, I hope he gets more evil, and I say that because a book reader, and he seems a little soft for a dark character in the Game of Thrones world. I think that's the main issue with him, but he does have time to grow. Cersei knows this, but and I still think that she is passing off Jaime's baby as his, so he doesn't kill the baby. She has an heir. This is why she's going back to the Lannister colors. Shout out to Costume Co. Also with the medallion or the talisman around her belly for protection as well. She wears that all the time. So shout out to Heidi.
Yeah, I mean, my argument with it is that I don't so much enjoy him. He is quite one-dimensional, but also I see the value in that. It is hard for me to see this version of Euron because Book Euron, and again, let me tell you where I'm coming from at this. I don't expect him to be Book Euron. I'm just being clear and honest about why I probably am not so much, enthused with his behavior in the show, because I fell in love with other character, and that's going to affect me, even though I'm very well aware that the medium changes everything drastically. Here's the thing. It's kind of needed for the story, right, Hax? Like, we kind of need to see that Cersei's only allies are left are foreign mercenaries and like just pure pieces of crap that are also only looking for self-preservation and to achieve success for themselves and not the bigger picture. He literally ran a campaign of regicide, and he calls the people from the Iron Islands ugly, and he hates, he's the opposite of a nationalist. So it makes no sense why people would follow him, especially on a pirate ship where it's a democracy and you have complete control in battle, and you would be mutinied against immediately. But also I understand the purpose that you have to have one-dimensional characters in order to have your three-dimensional characters. You know what I mean? They add layers. It's more of just representing a type of rule, other than representing a specific ruler, I guess.
Yeah, and with that, I didn't get to talk about this before we talked about the prospect of a boat fight, but man, I really hope there's a boat fight. Oh, dude, when they did it and Yara was taken, so well done. And we've spoken about before our love for Black Sails, which if you haven't seen that, is a great show that
Yes.
equal in every way to Game of Thrones. It just Game of Thrones pirates, in my opinion. I just think it was on Stars, so it failed. But regardless, boat battles can be done so incredibly well. So yeah, I look forward to that, and I pray to God that happens.
Do you want to do? I am in love with Black Sails. I did a few podcasts on them early on, some of my first videos. I would love to do it, but they need so much more recognition. I think you're completely right. Yeah, it's just expensive, I think, to do with those, especially with those tall ships. But I'll let somebody else talk. But I'm just happy to hear that from somebody. You don't see people talk about Black Sails enough.
I was just saying, the old rule: kids, animals, and water. These are the things that you don't want. If you read a script and it has any of those three things, you're really upset about everything, because that's going to be super hard to shoot. But they've done so great. And I agree with Hax. I'm going to watch that show. What's it called? Black Sails?
Black Sails.
Oh, yeah. You can watch it on Hulu, all of it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I'm going to go binge it this week, actually. I'm glad y'all made me think of that. That is
my gosh.
Great show.
You guys are going to be so happy. It's amazing.
I look forward to a sea battle. I like Euron. And hey, Johnny, I agree with you about Euron. I don't think what you're saying is only book stuff, because if you remember, his entry onto the show was very kind of crazy, and I am the god, and I am this, and there's more seas than you even know about. I know things nobody knows, He was almost introduced as like this kind of like crazy sea maester warrior. And he's really become kind of comic relief. And I like that, but I think it would be fun to have someone on a show, because it's like Ramsay. I go back to Ramsay. I love the actor, but I said in the chat, I wish that like that kid who played Robin Aaron had been cast as Ramsay, because he just had a better way of being creepy.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
dude, man.
My God.
That would either be the worst thing that...
Well, he would have to be older, dude.
No, I'm trying to decide if it's the best thing or the worst thing, which is a good thing.
Because I like, what's his name? I think his name is Reese something. He's a great actor, but Ramsay was too much. It was too over the top, and I like how Euron could be sadistic.
On the books, Ramsay's lips got to look like two worms fucking. So you got to remember that.
Oh yeah. Well, I think I think that worms have beautiful relationships. But here's my thing with Euron. Euron is supposed to be somebody that can give them the world, because the Iron Islands aren't great. He's somebody that can give them things that that nobody has, not just that they don't have. And he's charismatic, because dictators and crazy people throughout history that have done bad things, they are always described as being very charismatic, because you don't get obtain power by yelling, everybody here is ugly, this land sucks, I'm gonna go fuck a queen. You get it by saying, I'm gonna show you the treasures of the world that not only we just don't have, nobody has. But again, they don't have, certain things could be done better, but I just personally don't like it. And again, I don't think that it's like a flaw that like makes it so I could say this story is bad. I think that it serves a purpose. It serves the purpose of showing that type of behavior. His just like, he's a narcissist. He's a man that's obsessed with himself. He has, he's manic. He cuts the tons out of his crew because questionably, so they can't, talk and give up seat, but it's mostly so they can't talk about what he does. So there's a lot of dimensions to Euron, even in the show. You just got to kind of like look deep for them. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But it is what it is at this point. Keeping Yara around was it reminds me of Dr. Evil with the laser sharks, just like being evil. You should never be evil for the sake of evil, because people go about achieving their goals in different ways, and some people go about it in unethical ways. A person is just looking to be evil is not, as viable. But it's
there's not much backstory with Euron in the show, right? They just kind of throw him in there. So if you've read the books, you know who Euron is. Other than that, he's just this interjected generic bad guy.
Which makes sense for him to ally with Cersei, so it fits the story. It's just tough when you do fall in love with it, because just the Kingsmoot speech that he gives in the book is really compelling. You know what I mean? So like, again, I'm not saying they should have done that. I'm just saying it's important to recognize your biases. That's a bias of mine. So
and you know what? That's valid too, because hey, you know what I always say whenever we talk about the books and everything? My favorite book of all time is a book called Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. I don't know if anybody's read it. It's about humanity, kind of. It's very Westworldian. It's hard sci-fi. And they made a sci-fi series on the Sci-Fi Channel that was like 3 episodes. I don't even know if I finished it. It was terrible, man. It was like the worst thing you ever done in your life. And it was really bad. Like it was so bad that they dumped it. They didn't even really advertise it a lot. And so, you know, be thankful that Game of Thrones is so expensive and they put so much time into it, but they're never going to reach the books. I mean, look, I'm not a book reader, and I when I see people complain online, I get a little frustrated, only because I say, hey, the books are you're right. You don't even have to convince me. You know, there probably are so much better. And with Euron, though, I think they still have time here. You're right. They don't have a big backstory, but they have the thing with like Theon and Yara, and we kind of understand the Iron Islands on the show, right? And we understand this god of the sea and all the drowned god. So they could play that up. And I think that could be really interesting. And it would be interesting to me if maybe Cersei starts to buy into that. You know, she is so self-possessed and so enamored of power that could we possibly see Euron kind of start to get really in? Maybe the beginning of them doing it wasn't just to say it's his baby, but it's maybe he's going to turn Cersei. Maybe they really are going to kind of become equals here, and she's going to buy into I'm the queen and he's the drowned god, and it's something bigger than all that. You know, that could be kind of cool.
Well, there was the report, and I've cited before, it's off the wonderful Fox News, but Lena Headey had a big problem and fought against that love scene. And when I watched it, I also questioned, let me just say one thing. I also questioned, I'm like, well, it's kind of weird that they're choosing to have her, once she does have the power, still maintain the power, because, you know, she became queen by having to kind of sleep her way, you know, marry. So this is an odd decision to make, especially in a show that's supposed to empower women. And again, you've heard my rants about they should showcase things other than physical strength, because that's not, you know, the best way to empower. But anyways, but they convinced her. It was a big debate. She didn't want to film the scene. She didn't. They held off on filming. They finally got her to do it because they convinced her that the end game of why she does it is going to pay off. So we have to believe that something along the lines of, I believe it's the deception with the baby is why. Because Cersei's, you know, redeeming qualities are her cheekbones and her love for her kids. So if she is pregnant, or she's perceived to be pregnant by, you know, Tyrion, who's going to be pulled, I think, towards his family still. And that might get him into trouble. He's pulled towards Sansa. He's pulled towards his family, especially if Dany does use the dragon. So I think that it's going to be used like that. But I just think that, you know, it just showcases this show is showing us where power questions where power derives from, and question what makes a good ruler. You know what I mean? So like they're just trying to showcase a lot of like these archetypes, you know, a lot of different like ideologies and methodologies and philosophy about rule clashing. So Euron fits one. It's the crazy one, but it fits, you know. That's
well,
all.
he fits to kill someone we love more than likely, or someone big. I think that's kind of his role in general. What he's gonna, he is the C for Cersei. He's an extension of Cersei in my mind. Like, this is an extension of Cersei's personality, her darkest self almost. And yeah, she needs
that's
him.
What she attracts.
Mm-hmm. She needs him, right? But will she need him if, you know, will there be a point in time where Cersei wants to get rid of him? I think we could see that as well, and vice versa.
Definitely, and I totally agree. When you brought up earlier about the, I forget exactly what it reminded me of, just general, you know, the baby and him being used as that pawn to cloak the baby, being Jaime's. I think a really interesting dynamic is like if he figures that out, if he figures out that he is being used in that way, how he reacts to that. And I think that I think that we The only reason that we won't see it is because of time constraints, but I think that is super fascinating, and and maybe with another season could be more likely.
We do have no, I absolutely agree, because like what you're saying is we want it's conflict. That's what you want. We want conflict within this, so that baby being questionable if it exists or whose it is can put conflict for Jaime, Cersei, and Euron, so it works. Yeah, I love that. I hope they do it. We have Kerri, who's asking if any of us think that Jon and Dany will fight for the crown. I'll just say my quick answer. I do not think so. I think that this will end in a way that they won't get the chance to have that talk after the conquer, because one won't be around for one reason or another.
I completely agree with that. I would just say really quick that what we do see is going to be their people on their sides kind of bickering it out under the table, Game of Thrones style. Hopefully we'll have some Littlefinger Varys type action. I know Littlefinger isn't there, Sansa, but he's still in our hearts and minds.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have anything to say. I just want to say yeah.
That's a very democratic or a very it's a good answer there, Axel. It's a politician's answer right there.
I'm sorry. I like the idea of what Johnny said of getting back to kind of the double dealing, the surprising stuff, and I think that's fun. I think that we do want to see how the human element plays out. And one thing that I've been a fan of, and some people are not a fan of it, but Ken, who's a frequent guy who comes podcast with me, he had the idea that maybe we'll get to see episode 6 will be like a whole new cast 20 years later or so,
oh wow,
see how the world has survived. We'll get to know children and we'll see the world. And I said, wow, that sounds kind of crazy, Ken. And then he brought up the whole prequel thing and all that. And it's like, why wouldn't they do that? And I said, well, that's an interesting way to think about it. But in general, I just like the idea of getting back to the people and our characters and how they relate to one another, because that's how we started. And the circle has to kind of come back to the beginning, right? Like this started as kind of a BBC parlor drama, and now maybe it's going to get back to that. But I think we're still going to see an awesome naval battle.
Yeah, and it's a dream of spring, so this show should end with a depiction of at least what is likely to happen, or who's in power, in what their actual goals and what their actual plans are, like how they're going about doing things after all of these conflicts are done, after this final conflict.
Would it be Gillian? Oh, so would it be Gillian, Sam, and baby Sam? Would that be who we see in the future? I mean, I can definitely entertain this, Axel. I'm glad you brought it up. Sorry, Justin, for cutting you off.
No, you're good. No, you have to interrupt me. You know that. It's a sequence of events. It probably will happen. You will see people in the Vale. You will see people in the Reach. You will see, Dorne, the desert, because all 7 people from Dorne are dead. But all jokes aside, you will see a semblance of society in some reform. Is my prediction. They're gonna try to put, for better or worse, whoever ends up in places of power. You should have a good understanding of what they or how they execute that power. How they go about doing what they feel is right. If Dany's gonna rule, we know she likes to ask for love, and if not, she'll take your hate. Sansa's pretty pragmatic at this point, and Jon is somebody that's shown leadership skills and showed that he is able to do the right thing and actually go outside of the rules within the institution, meaning the Night's Watch, when he lets wildlings through, which is letting go of that that entire starkness, meaning you just won't do anything that is against any type of institutional standard. But also, I always make the comment that we have to realize that people say Sansa is not going to rule because she was in the crypts, and people are going to shame her for this, and people won't follow her. Here's the thing, that you can't rule when you're dead. So, you know, like all these people, like Jon made a decision that was the right decision, but also it got him killed. So if he wasn't resurrected, which isn't something, spoiler, in real life that happens a lot, I would say never. But you know, like you can't, you're not doing anybody any favors by sticking by your lofty ideals and morals if it's just going to get you killed, because we see what happens to his kids after and stuff like that. So her in the crypts shows me that she's somebody that is capable of leading, because look, Lyanna Mormont wanted to show how strong she was and all that, and which is, you know, very commendable, but now she can't help Bear Island from the grave. So that's all I say. You know, like I just think that it's important to take into consideration that these people all have different approaches, and some of these people's approaches are more about the best way to conquer than the best way to rule. And then those that are about the rule think that it's the best way and the right thing to do, and don't think about this may get me killed, so then it really isn't the best thing. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. I don't see Dany winning, because she's going to have to try to conquer, and she's going to lose. And then we're going to be stuck with somebody that doesn't want to have this mantle. I don't see this ending up with Dany on the throne instead of Jon. I see Jon being on the throne because it's that's bittersweet. You know, if Dany loses Jon, she still gets her goal. Her goal is the throne. That's her motivation. Jon's goal at this point is peace. Sansa is being independent. So, you know, like it fits more for Jon to have to take that mantle than Dany, in my opinion. It's just all about motivations and goals, man.
Yeah, I don't. To me, it just seems like this. This doesn't seem like the kind of show where the person who has said for 8 seasons, or really 7, that she is destined to be the king and she rules above all else, and that's just the way it has to be, is going to end up on the Iron Throne at the end of it. I just don't see it playing out that way. I don't know. I just don't. Why? I mean, is really the end for Westeros to be ruled by dragons again? That's where we come. We started this story when we first started the story. They told us over and over again, 17 years ago, the Mad King was killed, blah, blah, blah. It ended the Targaryen reign. The Targaryens are the ones who first unified Westeros. The story should not end with them being on the Iron Throne again. That's like, we've gotten nowhere. Like that just, I mean, maybe it will. And then I'll say that, well, I guess they were right. We get nowhere in life. But for me, that would be rather disappointing. As far as Jon goes, the reluctant king, I just think that's a tired story. If there is going to be someone on the Iron Throne, I would want it to be somebody like Sansa, Tyrion, Sam, or even my man Davos. He's my out of the blue pick.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like prime minister or like figurehead, because I think Davos has always just had the right idea.
Well, he has lived, and that's one thing that I keep reinforcing, that a ruler has to be alive. I guess what I'll say about Jon is he showcases a rise through merit throughout the whole arc, and then the injection of his royal blood and birthright is at the end. So that's kind of a perfect mix of what George does. He wants to have a story that shows, you know, people doing things that are for the greater good, and risking putting their neck out on the line and rising through society through their merit, not because of entitlement or birthright, because of, you know, what blood they have, but also it's a world in which claim is something that is very much at play. And the War of the Roses is all about jostling for that claim. It's all about arguing who has the better. So it just fits because it still has the message, is what I'm getting at, of rising through merit is the right way to do things. Because he was still, you know, anointed King of the North off merit, right? And then he gets the birthright at the end, so it's not so unrealistic. My thing about Dany is she has done the right thing because she believed she is the rightful ruler because of blood, but she will not get the throne, but she will be like it results in a good result, not for her 'cause she probably will end up dying, but it's a good message that this way of thinking still drove her to do the right thing in many cases, right?
Well, what if no dragon rules? Right? We're having all this focus on Jon and dating. What if neither one of them rule? What if it's Tyrion and Sansa? I could argue that this has been set up in the Crypts of Winterfell in episode 3.
Love it.
I love it. Yeah.
I want Sansa, but I don't. I just think it's the North. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Axe.
So I love the idea of Tyrion and Sansa either. I honestly think that what we'll see is them beat Cersei, them never kind of address this dynamic between Dany and Jon, so that after Dany wins, and it again still have never been cleared up, that I don't know, maybe Dany just axes him just to be safe. Like, she's always wanted that one thing in life, and Jon exists as a potential threat down the line. I don't know. I think that it would be bittersweet to see Jon go, but Dany rise, and I could see it.
It's like love versus duty, and can
Yeah.
they coexist and all that.
There's a lot of ways it could go. You know what I mean? There's a lot of ways it could go. It just seems to me that one in which it's more of an idea of the people kind of coming together, where like more people having opinions, even if it is one ruler, it's the type that listens and says like, I'm not just going to have like my small council. I'm going to have like a house, a Congress, something where people representatives from different places can come. Maybe Sansa has that idea and she's like kind of the prime minister or something. Whether we'll even get there, I have no idea. I'm sure there's people listening to us who are saying, oh, come on, they're just going to have a big battle and someone's going to win at the end. But I think this story does go a little bit deeper than that. But I think you have the same reservations about Dany that I do, which is that it just doesn't seem like the story is telling us that that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
We just have to consider that the people are the ones. That's Varys' whole riddle, is where the power lays. And I say this in every stream I know, but it's, with the sellsword, the priest, the king, and the rich man. Who does the sellsword kill? Only one can come out. Well, it's all dependent on if he, favors money, or if he's a pious man, or if he's a monarchist. Like if he's a monarchist, he keeps the king. If he's a pious man, he keeps the priest. So the power lies within the people. So the people, it's more so, important for the people to truly be in support of whoever is on the throne. I mean, but just the way the story works essentially, and why it's so compelling, is because people have goals, but their morals and their values stop them, impede them. They have that internal conflict of achieving those goals. So I just think that that's, like kind of where they're going, and it's a showcasing of like, somebody that is going off of like an idea we see as kind of like, terrible, like blood right, but still doing the right thing. And as we know, the right thing doesn't usually end up with a good result. And we'll probably close up here in a minute. I want to go to Hax on this one. I think an interesting person to talk about when we're talking about, not just rule, but, like goals and desires. Bronn. He's been, called to action to go and give a poetic death with, this crossbow by Cersei. My quick opinion is that's a great way to smoke out somebody that you have no clue why they're still in your capital, because there's no reason he would have any loyalty to her. If he does it, great for her. If not, get him out. I think that this episode is going to address where Bronn stands. Hax, how do you feel about Bronn?
So I think that I don't think we'll ever get to the point in which he has an opportunity to either take the shot or not. I think that he will be discovered with this crossbow, and then Tyrion will realize what that crossbow is. And then, maybe there's some drama that comes from that, whether he can be trusted or not, and how that plays in the grand scheme of things. I think that maybe maybe we'll see that, and then perhaps they join and march south. But I mean, what does he bring to the table? I think that the only thing that we're going to get from that is just a bit of additional drama. And
I think he's going to kill Danny. Let me throw that at you.
Yeah, I mean, I would be really shocked if he killed either of the Lannisters. I could see Danny. I mean, I could honestly see Danny just because, if Cersei's like, "Hey, kill my brother," but also, there's the one shot and you just end the war right now. I think that he'll take that one shot. I agree. But
that's what Jaime said to him too when he went charging at Danny with the spear as well. And Bronn was in the bed having some straight up PTSD over the dragons.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like he's sent to fight the dragons once again, and he, I don't think he ever wants to fight the dragons ever again. So I don't know. I think that crossbow mechanic and him being caught will come into play, but I want to say that there's going to be more drama than actual killing.
Yeah, he has no reason to favor Cersei other than she at this point has the money in which a sellsword, he sells his sword, would want, but they kind of go against that with him, replying that Qyburn with, she took away the castle as soon as she gave it to me. So, like his loyalties seem like they would lie with the brothers. I don't know if we'll get any, maybe we'll get, because yes, David, Phantom D Saint, I use that analogy in every live stream for the last month because I really feel like it's a perfect analogy for this show about the sellsword. So maybe he is the sellsword and he is put in that situation, but I don't know if that's a little bit too on the nose. But then again, it is Dan and Dave, so on the nose is not something that they're afraid from really going through with their zombie polar bears and a whole bunch of people on a rock fighting. But yeah, I don't know. Axel, do you think that Bronn's I think Hax makes a valid point. Like, what function does he serve at this point?
Well, I hope he serves a function. If I like the idea that Johnny had of him killing Danny, just taking a shot, like he has a shot and he takes it. I think that's kind of a cool idea.
One bolt in the heart's all it takes.
Yeah,
for the queen. Jorah told her that.
That would be very cool, actually. And if that did happen, I would be like, damn, because it's Bronn, like I have to say, when that scene happened, which just out of context or in context, but out of the show, that was actually shot for last season. That scene was supposed to be in the finale of season 7, but they pulled it because they didn't think it really fit, and they put it into the first episode this season. So that kind of tells me that they were thinking about that for a while, about why they were sending Bronn away. I like what you said, Justin. I also like just a more simple idea, because Bronn is more fun when he's at Winterfell with Tyrion and Jaime and Pod and Brienne. And it could just be something as simple as that Bronn just basically becomes a new part of our cast of heroes over there. And he just throws down that dumb bow, or he breaks it over his knee or just throws it in the bushes. That could be kind of fun too.
Yeah.
But who knows? But I just like him.
I like him too. I really do. I just think that because no one believes that he will kill either of the brothers, that he will 100% kill one of the brothers. Because he's not a hero, but I relate him to the good guys, as a part of the people that I want to succeed. And I think that seeing, that diversity is exactly what they're going for, because he's grown into a character that we like and is, kind of a good guy and has made morally good choices. But at the end of the day, he's never described himself as anything but a sellsword. And he's never described, he wants that gold. So maybe wagons of gold is enough gold to shoot his friends, and I don't know. I mean, I think that there's so much that from an audience perspective, we want him to be good, that it's going to make him be bad just because it's unexpected.
Oh my God. Wait, guys, I just thought of something. How did Grit die? Right? You Grit, Egret, you know.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
she's gonna
yeah.
die in John's arms. Oh, I've been
John, she was
Oh, dude.
somebody who we kind of liked up to that,
Oh, dude.
and with the bam, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's
Oh,
that's the
dude.
that's the the like literal interpretation of death or love being the death of duty and so forth.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm just thinking about the way there's so much foreshadowing, and Dan and Dave and the people who work on this show love to do visual story foreshadowing, like Jamie sitting by the window that Tommen's going to jump out of, talking about Tommen all the time. They've done this over and over and over again, and to have John's next woman in the heat of some battle or someone killed by someone we kind of
argument. What if they're arguing?
It could, I can see it now, and it just, I don't know if I buy it, but you could go back and say that, oh, look how they died. It's the same thing for John, you know?
Let me pose this to you guys, though. How many actions do you think Bran has carried out for money opposed to he felt it was the moral thing to do? Because I agree with everything you guys have been saying, that he is a sellsword, and like Hax, I think you're kind of like implying, which I'm in line with, that he constantly mentions that it's all about the gold, but we don't see him really that happy when he gets that gold, right, from Jamie from the loot train. So is that just like, a guy that's like, oh, I'm a badass, I'm a bad person, they just want to, just not admit that they actually have a heart and they're a softie. I don't think he's a softie by any means, but how many of the decisions has Bran made in this series, the television series, that have been motivated by fiscal reward besides emotional fulfillment? I think it's hard to say, because it seems like he does the right thing against his interests in a number of these occasions.
Well, we do have a little backstory in that conversation with Shay and Tyrion, that he talked about how young he was when he killed someone, and he talked about how his life has been so hard, right? So he is a very gray character, and he's, again, another crippled bastard, and he's a broken thing.
Yeah, and he showcases, I mean, he serves the function of showing that, fighting like with like that chivalric knight in the Vale didn't work out. He fought with honor. She's like, you don't fight with honor. He's like, yeah, he did. So it's like he serves that function. He puts he's like a wild card to a sense. He is somebody that we as an audience believe can be swayed. But yeah, I think I don't know, you guys got me thinking, I don't know, maybe do a video on it. How many of his decisions do we believe have been motivated by, fiscal reward, as a sellsword, as he likes to describe himself as?
I think it's really murky. It's kind of in between. He does it for both, and he kind of grew to like Tyrion, even told him so. And I just got one thing to say. Dany's shot in the heart. Is Bronn to blame? Is he giving love a bad name?
God damn it! I seriously, we must be like psychically connected, dude. Or I don't know if it's fools stick together or great minds think alike.
Can I just say that John Bon Jovi went to my high school, St. Joseph's in Metuchen, New Jersey.
What?
And, yeah. So rock on, Jersey rock, baby, forever.
That's amazing.
That's fine. I can't read when you guys put those messages on the OBS. It's really small. No, yeah, I think it's really, it's great. And I think that, it's the characterization as a sellsword, and true character comes out through his actions. So I guess his final action, whether it's fair or not, this action will show Bronn's true character. Characterization is of a sellsword. He sells his sword. His action will show, because if he kills the one, it results in him getting the most money. If that's the decision he makes, I guess that is who he is. So I think that we're going to have a lot of that. We have a lot of great situations here to go into closing, and we'll do death predictions. And I really want to thank you guys for coming on, and just thank you guys for sticking with us as well. Sorry, I was setting up OBS and got stressed out. So if, it seemed like I couldn't put my thoughts together very well for the first half hour here, it's because I couldn't, because I was so worried about getting OBS set up that I forgot to think about Game of Thrones for a moment. But I have a very, very good panel with I'm so happy that we have the Before the Dust Settles reunion here. And I hope to keep that going. You are a wonderful content creator, and I want you to talk a little bit about your book at the end and remind people, and I said this in a stream that you weren't in recently about how, we've seen a few books come out, and it's great because the reason that we do what we're doing right now is because we love story. So it's, I think along the lines of, like, why don't more YouTubers that do what we do write books? Not, oh, a YouTuber wrote a book, that's weird. No, that makes perfect sense. No, a guy that analyzes story, made story, guy that crafted a story. It's like fantastic. Yeah. And I hope that it does well. And I hope that you put a little citation at the end that thanks people, and then you put, but not Justin Thomas, because he's a dick.
Of course.
Yeah. And Johnny, you have, been at this for a year now. You came into it with Westworld, and now, it's amazing to see you grow, and you got your individual videos coming out. You stream more than I'm awake.
Just twice a week, man. Oh, well, I'm on everybody else's channel.
Yeah. Like if I needed to find you, I would go on YouTube before I would call you. And Axel, you are a person that helps me immensely when it comes to dealing with these different formats, and your vast amount of knowledge from being, pretty much one of the first to start doing what this has now evolved into, with the podcasting back in the day when you guys used to do it over the phone, talking about Lost, So the community that you have, and when I partake in Podcast Winterfell and I see the notes in the insight that you guys get, it's amazing. Almost all of your viewers could have successful YouTube channels for sure. I wish my comments were 7 pages of research, essentially serving as an essay of a analytical breakdown of story. Like, I usually just get good stream, you're a turd, or just something that I mispronounced that they want to correct. So that's the difference between the podcasting. But you guys have been immensely, you guys have been the reason that it's capable for us to do what we do, and to put together these diverse panels and talk about this in a way that is critical but also positive. So if you guys want to go through who you think's going to die in this episode, I'll do mine at the end, and I just want to do my sappy little thank you to everybody, and I hope to keep these going. Hax, start with you. Who's going to die first?
All right. So I don't really know who's going to die first. My kind of the last thing I want to end on, or the crazy theory that I'm sticking to, is I feel like Arya's skill set is that of an assassin, and she will try that again with Cersei. I feel that she will fail, and that we'll actually see Arya die. And so I guess maybe Arya, but yeah. So I think that in a similar fashion, how she tried the dagger trick. I imagine this scene in my mind where she tries the same dagger trick to the mountain protecting Cersei, who inevitably sees through her facade, and similar to when he was hit in the chest with the spiked mace, and it did nothing. She'll stab him, and he'll just crush her. So I feel like I think that that's what we're going to see. I think that Arya is going to die, trying to be the hero of this story again. So.
I think Arya's going to, Gendry's going to get her to the whole point where she's no better than the people on her list type thing. I do see Arya and the Hound fighting the Mountain somehow. I think she could definitely die doing that, but I think Arya is more going to have a metaphorical death. Now, Arya is set up to die, but in my opinion, because of the Faceless Men magic. But I think her killing the Night King cancels out that. That gives back the name, that replaces her name in the eyes of the many-faced god, in my opinion. I think that's where they're working around that. I think Arya's actually going to live, unfortunately, even though Arya's my favorite character.
Yeah.
But like in this episode, I guess who I would say is possibly going to die. I could go with Varys. I think we're going to see Euron definitely kill. He's going to do something at this point. Because this is going to be a really long episode. If we don't see a battle, I would be surprised. But I think we're going to see a battle somewhere. We may even see something going on in White Harbor, or Euron shows up in Iron Islands or somewhere else. I know that the spoilers are out, so I'm trying to forget I've seen anything. But I don't know if we'll get a lot of this episode. We're going to have a period of mourning, right? And we're going to have a period of seeing what Cersei's doing and her Game of Thrones that I think she's playing with Euron. She's just using him as a chess piece at this point. But that's really it. Maybe one or two people dying, but maybe Varys. And I'll just throw Jaime dying out there. Because if you want to be honest, Jaime could die right now, and he's completed his story arc. Necessarily, you could say that killing Cersei would complete it, but Jaime could go out.
He redeemed himself.
Yeah, with the knighting of Brienne, I think that might have been his culmination, as well as Brienne's. So yeah, maybe even Brienne.
Yeah, the things you do for love has now turned into the things you do for duty for him. So it's full circle. I definitely agree. David Nutter being in there has gotten a lot of speculation because he did the Red Wedding and a few other episodes that had more like, it wasn't dying in battle. It more of the, just sneaky deaths and things that pop up out of nowhere. So he is known for that. So I see some backdoor politicking here, but I don't necessarily think we will see a large amount of deaths this episode. If anybody, I would maybe predict Euron, maybe, because maybe there's a little bit of a naval skirmish or something and Yara pops in. But it's tough to say. They can't kill that many people off at this point because half of them represent whole kingdoms. Axel?
I don't know. I kind of think what Johnny said about this being like a morning episode, and though I do feel like something is going to happen because I always feel like something's going to happen. I don't particularly know that this is going to be an episode where a lot of people get knocked off. I have no idea. I didn't really come in thinking any particular people were going to go. But I do kind of think, we're going to see the resurgence of Euron and Yara and all that. So maybe there's some kind of death we have there. And there's always the surprise that can come and really shock us. I do also want to say thank you, Justin, for those kind words. I was trying to think of what I wanted to say, and that's what I wanted to say. That was very nice of you, and I appreciate that, man. I've had a great time here, too, and I hope to continue. I love coming on to YouTube.
Well, thank you. And I would just want to say sorry that I voiced my sentiment so poorly.
No.
Yeah. I've been looking for words all day, and I don't see them in sight yet.
You can keep looking, buddy. It's not going to help your IQ.
Yeah. But this episode, really, what I'm most looking forward to is where are we? Where are we going forward? Is who are the real teams? What's going to happen in the North? I'm just really interested in seeing how the end game is shaping up now that the Night King is gone. I want to see what happens with Bran. John brought up in the chat, and this was my wife theory. My wife dropped this. Bran was doing something while he was sitting there. He just wasn't aimlessly doing nothing. Maybe he was hiding away the memories. Maybe he was passing it on to someone new or something like that, So for me, I don't anticipate a huge amount of death in this episode. I more so anticipate understanding better how this end is going to come to its final conclusion. And I need to throw in my final theory. I've lost all my theories of Ice Queens. So I have to say, I still think Wildfire, we saw it once, we saw it twice. I think Cersei might use it again. I could see all of King's Landing being exploded. She bled on that ground. They threw doo-doo at her. They were mean to her. She never liked any of those people. She wants to destroy it all. Maybe she brings the people in. Maybe it's her dying act and she kills herself while she does it. But I just don't see Cersei going out in anything but a blaze of glory that kills multiple people and is completely selfish and terrible. But that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and that is in line with her character. I think that the Golden Company will never break an oath or contract because they will do what Cersei asks, and I think that is to just, pretty much as the Lannister army did in the rebellion, they will sack the city, because if she can't have that city, nobody's gonna have that city. And I got a cat in the background here. This cat used to do this all the time in streams. Yeah. So
They love
I'm
your
so mad at
comment.
you for that intelligence comment, Johnny. So be quiet for a minute.
You
But yeah, I definitely think that what we're seeing here is, this is essentially your first act again. It is cycled back around. They said they were going to make this into 3 movies. They actually pitched that at one point. So this, to find out how it's going to end, we not to be lame, but we had to find out how it began. So meaning, how did this battle the Long Night, how did that affect them? Obviously probably did some pretty messed up things to them, and they're not in the best mental condition, but we need to see where they're at emotionally, where they're at as far as what their main priorities are. And the final episode will be the resolution of that. They will set forth and state what their intentions are and what their fucking goals are, what their values are at this point, what they value, if they accept the Targaryen rule. If not, we'll find out where they stand, and then we'll see if they actually do act on that. The characterization of the North, true character in episode 5, and then the resolution in 6 with a semblance of a dream of spring to show the end result of this beautiful, beautiful story that we've seen. So yeah, I definitely think that Cersei's going to burn that city to the ground. I think that's definitely a high possibility.
I agree with that. She's definitely going to burn it down.
I agree only if it's her death, like only if it guarantees like it's her her martyrdom, like no like, because if she does that, then she has nowhere to rule. But if she's definitely going down, then she pulls the pin and blows everything up, then I agree. I think that we could see it then.
Doesn't it too hinge, Hax, don't you think, on the baby? If she's pregnant or has a baby, it's going to drastically change that decision making.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well.
It wouldn't for me. I don't like kids. Yeah, I'm lovable. Support me on Patreon. No, I actually do need support on Patreon, so that would be nice. I do have a bad, dry sense of humor. You got to stop that. I think that this was a lot of fun, guys, and I hope to have you on again. And I think Westworld will be on next spring.
2020.
Can't wait.
Jesus.
I'm not counting. It's too depressing.
Man, I know it's about the future, but they don't need to literally embrace that like within the medium and give it to
They gotta wait for the technology to catch up.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah. So, well, no, I had a great time, and again, I have everybody's information below. I really, really hope you guys go and support them. I suggest you do. And as soon as Hax gets solid details on when his book is going to come out, I'm sure I will be sharing that as well. Like I said, I was asked actually yesterday to take part in a panel for the Con of Thrones, talking about the spin-off, the Age of Heroes. So I will be on there with Amanda from I believe I just found her channel. I will look that up really quick. Quinn from Ideas of Ice and Fire, and Rob from In Deep Geek, and I think it's The Departed Lands, something like that. So I'll have to edit it. So yeah, it should be a good panel. Should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to going there. I'm also doing a con that's close to me, where I'll be live streaming from. I got a booth. They have a bunch of content creators set up, so we're gonna just all be streaming from there. So I don't know how fun that's gonna be. It's a pretty small con that's near Raleigh, North Carolina. So we'll see how that goes. Probably just a lot of cosplay talk. So should be a good time. So yeah, make sure to subscribe to all these guys' channels. I have a stream tomorrow at 11 p.m. Eastern, doing it with Kane McKay. He's in New Zealand. And then I got the Fat Dingo, Andrew from Australia. It's just us three, and we'll do our recap on the show. So looking forward to it. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you guys soon.